Hey.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 22 of The Swamp Creatures. The boys are back in town. So tonight is going to be a little bit of a different episode. For those who tuned into our Timcast IRL stream, this is going to kind of be in the same vein. So
are you messing?
What? Yeah? All right. So basically, this first hour...
All right, hold up a second. You have the craziest thing, so I'm going to have to bounce in.
What's going on? Oh, no. Are we having some technical errors going on here? Hopefully we don't lose Josh here. But anyways, this first part of the show is going to basically be a pre-show for the Dave Smith-Nick Fuentes debate. And then from 10 o'clock onward, it's going to be a watch-along where we bring up the Nick Fuentes-Dave Smith debate and, just kind of give our sort of live reactions. Hopefully Rich will be joining us. He might be. If not, this might just be a Mitch and Josh episode. So we'll see. Josh, you there? Can you hear us? I'm assuming that Joey can... That I'm good because it looks like Joey saying some stuff in the chat.
Oh, boy, Mitch. You sound like you're at half speed to me right now.
Half speed? I just sound slow? Ah.
You sound...
How
about
if I turn that off?
I don't know if that's on your end or my end.
Oh, man. This is not good. No bueno. Well, Joey's saying it's good with the both of us. So, I don't know. Well, this is a concern. I'm assuming this is probably something with Josh then. Can you hear me now, buddy?
Yep, but you're still sounding like you're at half speed, man. Now I can't hear you at all. Nope.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yep, but you're still at half speed, so we're
still
just
at half speed. That's lovely. Alrighty. I don't know what to do here. We seem to be sounding fine to the people watching, so that's at least good. Let me get back to that. So basically this we'll be talking a little bit about have our little pre-show here for the debate, but hopefully we can work out these kinks. Yeah, call Rob. Rob's being... If you want to know where Rob is, he's being very selfish and spending time with his family. I know, it's horrible, right? So selfish.
I'm going to try this.
Switching over to the laptop.
Let me see. Talk now.
Talking now. Whoa. Talking now. We all good?
Yeah, go on without me for a bit, bud. Something's wrong with my audio.
All right. Well, join back up. We'll figure this out. So it looks like this is going to be a little bit solo here for a few minutes. So this should be really fun. We're basically going to be tuning in for the Dave Smith-Nick Fuentes debate that is being hosted on Odyssey. And this should be a really interesting thing. Before we went live here, this sucks because me and Josh were actually having a really good conversation. I'm going to turn the music back on so it sounds more fun. Me and Josh were actually just having a really good conversation about that sort of Dave's tweets that we basically I'm sure everyone has seen those about the whole homeless people in the park thing. And we were kind of having a little bit of a conversation about that, and just something that I was thinking about because my buddy Jack Lloyd, one of my best friends in the Liberty Movement, I know him and Dave were going back and forth about that, and I can't help but think, and this is just me saying, Jack's my buddy, Dave Smith is someone who I look up to. Okay, we're getting the good to go. We good to go? We good? Awesome.
We're back. Can you hear me?
Yes, we are go for launch.
All right,
Awesome.
awesome. Sorry about that. Unfortunately, this cell phone technology isn't as great on here. But yeah, we were having. I really was enjoying the conversation we're having because this was leading into a good conversation of that was just such a bad take, and there was so many better ways to go about it. But I'm gonna let you kind of keep going, Mitch, because you were having a great lead in there.
Yeah, no, I'll just say what this is the same thing that I told you before we started here was that my biggest criticism was I think that both Dave and Jack were both kind of being a little bit short-sighted. I think Dave was being
Mm-hmm.
short-sighted in regards to just dismissing a lot of libertarian solutions that I might not necessarily disagree with, but I mean I might not necessarily agree with, but at the same time, he's saying basically, I'm not seeing anyone giving me any solutions, but it's like, people are trying, like I'm sure you haven't entertained everyone. Like so many people comment on your Twitter feed. I'm sure you can't get to them all. Like I'm just trying to be practical there, life.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought Jack was being a little bit short-sighted too, in the sense that he was kind of, and maybe this will change as years go on. I don't know if he'll have kids eventually or what, but if he ever does, I feel like if you were, you're kind of like saying, well, why don't you just go to a private park? It's like, yeah, but when you live in New York and you're dealing with that sort of stuff, you're dealing with what's around you in the there and now. So I feel like that's a little bit short-sighted too, because you're kind of just disregarding the other part of that perspective. I don't know. That's just something that I kind of saw going on between both, but that was just my observation. Josh, you have any thoughts on that? I know you weren't a fan of Dave's take there.
I wasn't, but because we want to host a proper show, we need to start first by going around and introducing the drinks. So, Mitch, before I go in, what are you drinking tonight? Uh-oh.
Well, my
Mitch
good
almost
sir.
forgot his. Uh-oh, what you got, Mitch?
No. Remember, my traditional thing here has been authoritarian drinks the last few weeks, so I'm continuing my German wine, my Frankenmuth wine. So that's what we got
All
here.
right. And I'm back on Old Reliable with the Yingling here, so I may as well start getting like an endorsement deal from them or something. You guys can call me, DM me, text me, I don't know, whatever y'all do. But yeah, my point was that, kind of like I was telling you before we came on air, was that, you know, as somebody who lived in New York and New Jersey, where, I know Dave Smith generally resides, I get kind of where he's coming from. You got to work in the here and now, but like, I'm from small town, rural New Jersey. Like that type of shit where I'm from, you're not going to call the cops to get rid of a homeless person. You're kind of going to do like the Trailer Park Boys Ricky move where you're going to go over and go, hey, I'm going to need you to fuck off. Here's like $20, go away. Go hit the convenience store, go get you a sandwich, buy a drink, go hang out for a couple hours. Let me and my kids play at the park without you being around. And then you can come back when I'm gone, bro. Here's a little cash to make it worth your while. So that way you're incentivized to get the fuck out and fuck off, and everybody wins. The homeless guy's happy. He just made a couple bucks. Easy squeezy. He didn't have to do anything except just be at the fucking park. It was opportunity right there for him for just being there. Now he gets to go off. He's got money in his pocket. He can just go fuck off somewhere else and go make more money if he wants, doing the same shit. My kids get to play at the park, no bum around, jerking off or shooting dope in their butt or whatever it is that we're worried about the homeless dude doing. And reality is, a lot of times, as long as the homeless dude's way over there and my kids are over here, I don't give a fuck about the homeless dude. Leave him the fuck alone. He ain't worth the time. Like I live in,
Oh no, are we losing Josh now?
Miami, Fort Lauderdale, South Florida. Like, I'm getting. Am I back?
You're back. You're back.
Am I back?
You are back.
Okay.
You're 100.
Yeah,
Okay.
like I live in urban South Florida around Miami and Fort Lauderdale. We have tons of homeless people all around me. Like I used to have ones that lived right around the corner from me. You just kind of get used to like, all right, they're there. They're part of your community, technically. You know who the homeless people are in your area. And when you see a new one, that's the ones if you're going to look out for them, okay, well, that's just because you're the new guy in town. Everybody's a little wary of the new guy at first. All right, well, you don't cause no problems. You don't bother nobody. You just ask for change at the 7-Eleven or whatever. I don't see why people make this out to be something it doesn't gotta be at the end of the day.
Well, I mean, it's funny you say that though too, because you're making me remember the places that I've lived in the past. And it seems like there's different types of homeless people that you deal with as well. So like part of me wonders like what exactly is Dave talking about here? Because I'm sure that are we talking about like New York or I'm sorry, San Francisco shooting up heroin on the sidewalk, or like is it just some dude with like a torn up shirt sleeping on a bench? Like
That's the
there's
greatest question of all time. How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop, Mitch? Who fucking knows, bro? That's what I'm saying. Like, we don't know the
the world will
situation.
never know. That's
And,
the point.
exactly. And personally speaking, the fact that it was a retweet, essentially a quote tweet of a Tho Bishop tweet just made it all the much more worse. Like, you picked like the worst person in the GOP you could have to retweet if you want to get libertarians' attention. Because goddamn, if he's not the most doofy, polarizing figure,
Oh man, how does this keep on happening with you, Josh? The
pretty
Wi-Fi there?
movement. Because I don't, whatever the fuck he's doing.
Yeah. Can you there, Josh?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's as far as the whole Tho thing goes too. There's kind of like part of me is looking at that thinking, yeah, Dave, you should probably get a little bit of a feel of what's going on down here in Florida. Because those people aren't exactly all hunky dory with like the Libertarian Party for starters, but also this whole Bay County so successful thing. I haven't seen any great successes of it. It's Trump country.
Yeah.
It's not Libertarian country. It's Trump country.
Who have they elected?
I mean, where's Sabatini from? Is he one of their people, or where? I'm not sure. No, I didn't
he's
think
from
so.
Central Florida. He's not a Bay County guy. That's what I'm saying. What has Tho done? Who have they gotten elected in the GOP there? Who that wasn't some fucking whack ass, dusty fucking warhawk neocon fucking swamp creature, and not the good kind like us. I'm talking the shitty politician kind. Nobody. They haven't had one major candidate accomplishment out there that they can speak on. That's why Tho goes back to the well of fucking trying to bamboozle libertarians with that, power and influence bullshit. Because he just wants everybody to believe that, hey, I'm in the GOP. The GOP is the party of power and influence because we win elections. So that's what you got to come to if you want to win. Which the reality is he hasn't won shit either. So who the fuck is he trying to fool? Me? Not me. You? I hope you ain't fooled. Them? You know what? There's a reason there's a bell curve. The people at the bottom and the people at the other side, they're probably the ones not listening. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no. As far as his whole shtick goes too, I can't help but feel like there's kind of like I've heard more about what he's done that turned out not to be true. Like it wasn't from Tho himself, but someone told me that he was in DeSantis's ear, and I later found out that just was not true. Like
he's not in anybody's ear. He's in his own ear.
That's what I'm saying. Is they're the people who at least follow him try to make him sound a lot more influential than he is in that sphere. But
all right,
even for Dave Smith to be piggybacking on that, I can understand being friends with someone, but to kind of piggyback on that, it kind of creates one of those, people in Florida who might be a part of the Libertarian Party of Florida see that and think, are you our guy, Dave? What's going on here?
Yeah, you're backing Tho. You're backing a Tho idea, which doesn't sound super libertarian in its essence, and then you double down on it. Is no, you didn't understand me. What I meant was send the cops out and let them institute justice immediately. Like, I get what he's saying. Justice means, the expectation is if that Susan around the corner brings her kid to the park, sees a homeless guy jerking off at the park. She calls the cops. The cops are going to come and have the homeless guy who's jerking off removed. It's a victimless crime. Some might call it a victim crime because there's a child involved. I'll let somebody else decide that. That ain't for me. But at the end of the day, you expect the cops to remove him. But the image you're going to get, especially in 2021, is these cops are going to come in there in riot gear and they're going to pull an Australian and stomp the shit out of the dude. And probably he ain't wearing a mask either, so it's going to be a double dose of stompage.
Yeah, that's the thing, is police brutality is immediately what people think of, and the pure iron force of the state. With Dave, I think what he's doing is he's trying to channel the late Murray Rothbard, who had that opinion on that when it came to major civil unrest. You really have to unleash the police. That was Rothbard's point. That was just what I think Dave was trying to do there, but unfortunately, that comes from the era of Murray Rothbard that doesn't really resonate with a lot of people.
And I mean, you're talking about Murray Rothbard talking about like a riot. You're going to say,
Yeah.
do you consider civil unrest a homeless dude in the park shooting dope in his butt? No, I call that a personal problem. And probably if he's shooting dope in his butt at the park, like out in public like that, where you're going to watch him shoot up, that's probably a cry for attention. He probably needs some serious help, and potentially in about 20 to 30 minutes, a couple doses of Narcan. So, like, like it's a bad analogy that was sounds like it was taken out of context for Dave more than anything. And because Dave Smith is who he is, has the platform that he does, and it has been implied multiple times as a potential 2024 LP presidential candidate, you kind of expect that that's what's going to happen to him. He's going to have a lot of people who are going to go, "What the fuck, Dave? What was that?"
Well, I think what he did is he basically handed a win to Spike Cohen, in some ways, as far as public relations goes right now. Because Spike's been on fire, man, like commenting on like all those Facebook posts and everything, which I know how he does that. He got his page verified, and because of that, it now notifies people when he comments on things, which plays to his advantage, but it's smart, tactically speaking.
Oh, yeah, like, I'm not saying any, like, don't get me wrong, I never said that Tho was a stupid man. I just said his, like, ideas.
I was talking about Spike.
Were stupid. Spike's. All right, I just wanted to shit on Tho. I'm sorry.
Everyone, you always got to, as Tim was saying, we got you talking about Tho.
Uh-huh. Yep.
The fifth person who just jumped in is Tho.
I'm going to say, Joey, because I just saw your comment, that's just, where dope heads like to shoot up. Are you going to look at a dope head's butt? I'm not. Got to hide the track mark somewhere, bud.
Oh, man. I mean, at best, you could say that something like this should be viewed as like a public health thing more than anything else.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Somebody like that, if you're in that situation where you have a homeless guy, like if he's not really doing anything, then just, hey, here's $20, go away, bro. If you don't want to pay the homeless guy $20 to go away, you're probably not going to go to a private park either, and so you got to deal with whatever's there at the public park.
Private park's probably going to charge you that much to get in.
Hey, that's what I'm saying. The whole idea, that Jack Lloyd was saying, like, oh, why don't you just go to a private park? Like, okay, well, maybe some people don't want to pay $15, $20 to go to a private park, $10. So that's on them. It's a balance. Do you want to deal with the homeless guy in the park? No. Do I want to pay $10? Also no. So I guess either I'm not going to the park, or I'm going to have to just deal with the homeless guy at the park in some way, shape, and or form. Sorry, that's just the way the real world works. You get choices. You have to make the best choice for you. Nobody's telling you have to go to the park with the homeless guy, but if you go there, that's your prerogative, and you need to accept that that was a choice that you made. Stop making it out to be, okay, I need somebody else to handle my problem. Like, more than likely, if you're talking New York or New Jersey, it's a high-density, populated area. There's fucking tons of parks everywhere. Go to another fucking park without a fucking bum in there. It's that simple. Oh, you put it in Google. You don't want to drive? Well, then deal with the bum at the park you're at. I don't know what to tell you at that point. Like, you have choices, and you're making, like, the choice you made was release the police. Like I said, that's the first thing I think of is, okay, release the police sounds bad where I come from. That sounds like my ass is about to get stomped the fuck out for about an hour straight.
Yeah, the framing more than anything else. I can see what you're saying with that. And the way,
So
and it
yeah,
doesn't help over the past year with everything that's happened with police brutality and everything going on. That's still fresh in everyone's memory.
bingo, kid. That's what I'm talking about. You have to look at it from the reality of the here and now. We're seeing all this police brutality. You got Black Lives Matter shutting down highways and streets and shit, painting all over roads. You got people protesting, burning cop cars, taking over police precincts. Like we saw this in what was it, Wisconsin or Minnesota? I think it was Minnesota where they took over the police precinct and burnt it to the ground. Like,
I think that
you know,
was, yeah.
yeah, you know, are we more than, yeah, we're more than 5 minutes. It's dope shit from an anarchist perspective, fuck the cops and all that shit. But like, one, what did you gain really except the fucking felony charge later on down the road? Number two, like, when you go to that part, you go to that idea of, okay, release the police and what we've seen over the past year or two, it's going to always get framed in the most negative light. That's how everybody's always going to go to is what's the worst thing we can possibly look at this at? That's why memes are so great. They're funny. People, there's nothing you just have to laugh at it. There's nothing, it's straight to the point. With that, now you've opened it to interpretation. Of course, the fakertarians are going to jump on that shit. You're Dave Smith. They hate you. And you're going to retweet, quote tweet Tho Bishop with some stupid shit about release the police. And this is a great libertarian perspective because late paleo-libertarian Rothbard said so, when even late paleo-libertarian Rothbard said late paleo-libertarianism really didn't work out the way he wanted it to, and kind of renounced it towards the end of his life. So, I mean, that's cool if you want to follow the whole paleo strategy. Great. Be good Christians. Have good morals. Go to church on Sundays. That's all well and good. You can call me a moto libertarian because I want to live a different life than you do. But fuck out of here if you're going to tell me release the police is one, a libertarian, phrasing that any libertarian should be using. At no point should we be releasing any police. No agents of the state should ever be released to anywhere except Guantanamo Bay.
Unleash the private security firm.
Yeah, I'll be okay with that. Yeah, release Blackwater for all I care. That ain't my problem. You paid for that at that point. That's your business. If you want to employ Blackwater to go police up your fucking homeless people in your parks, that sounds like a stupid fucking idea, but that's your fucking problem at that point. As long as it ain't happening in my city, that ain't my problem.
Well, I mean, there was several years ago, just on that topic, where the city of Detroit went into bankruptcy, and it basically didn't have a functioning government for a time, to where a lot of the city had to rely on private security, and lo and behold, crime rates actually went down.
So I mean,
private market government. Just better, more efficient than government. No, the way to put it.
Yeah. Just as another, for instance, this is something that happened recently, too, in Camden, New Jersey, and I might have a little bit of the details a little jacked up, so I apologize. But the way I understand it was that early 2000 was that Camden City abolished their police department and then basically focused on the county policing the city. Because, the city of Camden and Camden County. Well, you saw a significant drop because a lot of the officers who began to patrol the area in Camden were officers who lived in and around the city. They weren't people coming in from the suburbs coming in to police the city. So this also comes back to where we got to talk about localization too, to a certain extent. Do you want a big corporate contractor agent, security agency policing your private park, or do you want a local private security contractor that because you see them at the grocery store? They're people in your neighborhood. Kind of a little bit of like a Hoppian kind of idea to it a bit, but Mitch got to let the cat in. But yeah, did the cat get in all right?
Yeah, cat's
Is
cool.
the
Cat's good.
all right? I
Cat's
want to make sure the
he's
cat.
he's he's busy. No, I actually didn't go grab the cat. I realized my dumbass forgot to bring a glass up here with me, so I'm going to do it a little bit easier and drink what you're drinking.
Hey,
So only
buddy.
because Tim isn't on the show and he's in the comments talking shit. So here we go, Tim. That's for you.
Unleash the cops. Like, you know, if I'm going to unleash the cops, I'm going to unleash the local security firm. Like I said, people I know in my community, like, if I'm going to do all this privatization shit, I'm not going to want Amazon security like securing my town. I'm going to want, you know, I don't know, Hallandale security, Fort Lauderdale securities. I don't know,
Yeah, yeah.
some
Well, I
kind
mean,
of local.
that's kind of the fear that people had when they saw that story of the Silicon Valley startup city or whatever it was called, where they saw that and immediately thought, "Oh, great! So now I could just, instead of getting arrested by the police, I'll get fucked up by the Google
Maybe,
police or whatever."
maybe whatever Google allows on their private property.
Yeah, yeah. I
That
mean, they
ain't
are
my
a private
business.
company; they can do what they want. Damn.
Private, sure. How many millions and billions of dollars of government contracts and subsidies have they taken over the course of their fucking existence?
Government contracts, and let's not forget about all the military technology that they've helped create for us and China.
Oh, that's what they're all government contracts, bud. Somebody's paying them to make all that shit. So
Yeah.
whether it's outright from the DoD or it's some shady CIA black op like slush fund that's paying Alphabet, them motherfuckers are getting a check either way, and that's all they care about. Let's keep it real. Big tech, big corporations, as long as the check's coming in and it cashes and clears, they don't give a fuck who signed it. They don't give a fuck who cut it. They don't give a fuck what bank it came from. For all they care, they'll take terrorist money. We've literally seen that happen. They'll take fucking pedophile money. We've seen that happen. They'll take rapist, murderer money. We've seen that happen. Corporations don't care. That's why it's like it's tough with that argument of, okay, we'll just go to a private park. What private park? Are we going to Six Flags? Like, am I going to Disney World? Am I gonna have to pay $200 to stand in line for 8 hours each ride? Like, what park am I going to?
Well, I think that's where it's this is where if I could this is why I still am for Dave for president is he's really good at attacking the left from the left in that way where he'll point out it's like yeah the big banks and all that used identity politics, all this racism and all that crap to divide people because Occupy Wall Street scared them.
Oh, Occupy Wall Street scared so many people.
Oh yeah. It was a much more
Like,
simple time, my friend.
oh, I remember, man. That was like the beginning of my red pilling because I was like, damn, yeah, fuck these big corporations. I was like, they can eat these L's. Like, small businesses are getting killed. Like, we need to like worry about like the mom and pop shop. And then I'm watching the Tea Party movement on the right, and I'm like, yeah, these wars are kind of fucked up. And yeah, why are we spending all this money all of a sudden? We're in a whole fucking lot of debt. Like, even as a kid, I was like, man, we're in a lot of debt as a country. This can't be good. And like, as I got older, I'm like, man, we are in a lot of debt. This is going to fuck us up at some point.
I mean, a lot of that stuff that was going on around that time, that's kind of what led me to Ron Paul. Because much like you, I saw what both of those ones were saying. I was just a kid in high school. But, I could see the writing on the wall, like, this is not going to end well.
Did I ever tell you about my introduction to Ron Paul? Like the story of that? Because
No,
I
what
actually
was
got
it?
introduced to I got introduced to Ron Paul around like 2007. Right as I was coming out of high school, we had this kid, and we actually called him in high school. He was the Ron Paul guy.
I was
Like,
probably that guy.
you might have been, but in my high school, his name was Rob. I'm not going to put his last name out there so people can dox him, but guy's name was Rob. And Rob, we knew, was the Ron Paul guy, and he would keep going around. He would tell us, "Oh, you got to vote for Ron Paul. He's gonna fix the whole he's gonna fix the whole country." And all of us laughed them off, and we're like, "Oh, well, what is he running as?" And he's like, "Oh, he's running as a libertarian." And I'm like, "Oh, third parties are never gonna get the vote." But I looked him up. I was like, "Oh yeah, he." I was like, "Wants to end wars." I'm like, "Yeah, that's cool." I was like, I was really worked on like, hey, he wants to like cut spending and not put us in debt. And then I really got put onto him later. And I'll never forget this because I remember it so vividly. I was sitting there watching one of the like first GOP primary debates, and my brother comes into the room I'm sitting in, and he looks at me and he goes, "What are you watching?" I'm like, "Republican debate." And he's like, "All right, who are you supporting?" I'm like, "I don't really know, bro." Like, I was like, "It looks like Mitt Romney or Rick Santorum's going to win, but I can't really tell." I was like, "I'm just kind of watching to see who's going to win." He goes, "Wrong answer." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "The answer you should be saying is Ron Paul should be the one you're voting for." I was like, "Why?" He wants to legalize pot. Sold.
You know, it's
So
funny you say that, bro. In high school, that was my selling point to all my stoner friends.
I was in college, bro. I was a junior in college. This was like the 2012 election. I remember going out there like we had one of the debates at Hofstra University for the presidential election. So I'm out there, like I'm seeing all like different like little third party candidates for smaller elections that are out trying to like, locally trying to whip support for their elections and shit, and just trying to get some media time. And it was just, you know, it was crazy to look back on that and be like, man, like if somebody wouldn't have just been like, hey, a single issue, like, hey, this guy's good on this. Like that was what sold me. Like imagine how many people are gonna, this is why like I still say I like, the whole Dave Smith like unleash the cops thing really isn't a deal killer for me, because I have that same thought is somewhere out there is going to be that like 21, 22-year old, 19-year-old kid sitting on a couch smoking a joint who's going to be watching a debate somewhere, who's going to hear the name Dave Smith and they're going to look him up. I'm like, who's this Dave, like this comedian guy running for president? And they're going to be like, holy shit, he wants to legalize pot. He wants to make sex work legal. I'm an OnlyFans girl. Like, that would be great to not have to worry about, to make my work all easy squeezy. Oh, I like to smoke weed. Oh, great. You want to make weed legal? And I can grow my own pot. Holy shit, that's crazy. You know, and these people, they're not watching debates, and kind of like about it is, the people aren't going on and watching TV. Everybody's cut the cable. Nobody's got fucking cable anymore. Everybody buys Comcast or Cox or Spectrum or whatever the fuck, Verizon, Fios. People just stream shit now. They go on YouTube. They listen to podcasts. Nobody cares about mainstream TV anymore. It's a dead fucking brand. So they're going to go on and they're going to listen to Joe Rogan in 2023, 2024, and they're going to hear this Dave Smith guy running for president. What the fuck does he got to say? Boom. You're going to put so many people on. You're going to have Dave Smith go on Kennedy. Blam. All the old boomers who are watching Kennedy are going to be like, all right, well, this guy isn't so bad. Why am I going to vote for crusty Mitch McConnell? I don't know. Why are we going to vote for Trump again?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to give us a major selling point too, which is really nice because there's a lot of people very disenchanted with the Republican Party. And Donald Trump not pardoning Julian Assange, Ross Ulbricht, or Edward Snowden, I think, also had a lot to do with that as well. But as far as what our co-host Tim is saying here in the chat is someone out there to say that the whole homeless debate is worth dropping him over?
Oh yeah, all the Fictitarians want him done.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like this is like they're basically saying we should cancel Dave Smith for this, which like I said, shitty take. I'm a grown enough man to say it's a shitty take on camera. I'll say it to his face if he comes to LPF convention. If it comes up like, hey, bro, yeah, that was a shitty take. I'll stand by my word. That was a shit take. I think you're a better dude than that. I expected better of you. Let's move on. Grown ass man shit. That's all. End
Yeah,
of the day, though, like, I'm not going to remove him from I wouldn't remove him from the conversation. That's stupid.
no, because he provides a lot to the conversation. Frankly, if you want to get down to like those core beliefs that we all share as libertarians, he still has those, which are
Yeah,
far more important than these semantical debates.
absolutely. And this is kind of like at this point to me, kind of a dead subject because, like I said, the answer really is that no matter where you want to sit on it, some people are going to call it a bad take. Some people are going to be like, "Fuck you! It wasn't that." It was all right. Either way, that's your fucking opinion. Guess what opinions are like? Assholes. Everybody's got one. No one cares about yours personally. A lot of times. Like the only people who are going to care about your opinion are people you can influence, which at that point they're going to listen to you anyway, regardless if your take is shit or not. And people who are looking for excuses to like just shit on you, which they already are going to come from a negative perspective anyway, which is what most of the fakertarians are going to do. They're going to, oh, it was a shit take. But like I said, end of the day, we're all going to have our opinion. Is it enough to take the guy out of the conversation? No. Like I said, that's stupid. That's just people wanting to be angry because they live shit lives. They don't have fun. I don't know. Maybe somebody pisses in their Cheerios every morning at breakfast. Like, I don't know what makes these people wake up and just hate themselves and hate life so much that if they go out and attack a guy like Dave Smith, or like anybody for that matter. There's a ton of people we could just rattle off that these people just love to go on and on and on about. You want to wake up and be that miserable, great, but I think this is like a dead subject at this point. We're going to move on. We're going to get past this. He's probably going to get nominated as the presidential candidate, and we're going to run him in 2024, and then come whatever may.
Yeah, it seems like Justin Amash, from what I've been hearing, I don't know if he's going to run anymore. If there ever even was any intention to.
Honestly, I like Justin. I think he's a really great candidate. He's somebody that, like, getting to speak with him at the LPF convention last year, like, what I thought of him, I walked away just as impressed with. I thought he was a really great, like I said, a really great candidate. Do I think he's presidential? Not at this point. But, and here's the but on this, is that I think he would be a better governor candidate in Michigan or running for like a Senate seat out there. And here's the thing, is that sets him up in 2028 to run for president.
Real
and
quickly,
I think
would
be go.
I told him to his face at the Florida convention that I really want to see him run for governor of Michigan. As someone who is from that state and seeing what Gretchen Whitmer has done to that state, just how it has become one of the lockdown states, it is just it's a downright disgrace to see what the hell's happened. I was very disappointed to hear him tell me that he just did not have any intentions to do that in the near future, and that he was. The whole thing was just, I couldn't help but think, it's like, dude, this is a golden opportunity. Like, I get family, but with the position you've been handed, like, I just don't.
I mean,
I was very disappointed because I very strongly agree with you on that. And if we're being real here, normally we can't talk about libertarians actually having a fighting chance. Justin Amash, you're in a blue state that hates Donald Trump. The Republicans in Grand Rapids, you're never going to get your chair back because that is a red district. That is blood red. They love Trump, and you stabbed him in the back, so they're not going to like you. But you know who will like you? The rest of the state where all the freaking Democrats are. And what's nice is Michigan isn't your typical kind of blue. These are a bunch of outdoorsmen workers who love to go out and hunt. Like, you don't exactly have to play woke liberal to win these people over. And these people are
Mm-hmm.
pissed at Whitmer too because she's fucking with their work. It's like everything lines up to like a golden opportunity. Like, so yeah, I know I strongly agree with you on that. I really wish that he would run for governor because there's actually a fighting chance.
And I mean, like you said, he said that in the in the near term.
In the near term.
That's not to say things could change, and that
I hope
and
I hope they
I
do.
don't. I hope they do too, and I don't want to speculate, but I can't speak on what's the infrastructure like in LP Michigan. What is has he already put feelers out, and maybe that's something where he's like, hey, I don't know if I have the bandwidth to do it. I don't know, I don't know the ins and outs on what Justin Amash's like intentions or plans or what his strategy is at this point. I just know that, like I said, like talking with him, I got a good feeling about him. I think it'd be so like like just a strategy standpoint, back off of any presidential idea this coming cycle, run for governor of Michigan, because either way, either you're going to win, great, or you're going to lose and make some noise, great. You're going to get some media attention, and like I said, that sets you up. If you want to run in 2028, I'd fully support that. I think that would be a great idea. I've said it numerous times, in private and in public. I don't think for a goddamn second that the smartest idea for us long term as a party is to be running podcasters and comedians as our candidates for president. But I understand that somebody with, once again, the kind of reach that David Smith has, I can make an exception. I had this conversation with another person earlier, was that, they asked me, do you think running podcasters as candidates is the answer? I'm like, no. But sometimes you got to look at the reality of a situation and accept that you got to make an exception sometimes. Would I run the Tower Gang guys for president? Fuck no. Fuck no, I wouldn't run
They're gonna
Fat.
hear this now.
That's fine. Fuck no, I don't think they would want to do that shit. All of them would probably be like, man, fuck, don't put me in that fucking situation. Fuck you, bro. But like, no, I don't think that I would, like, if I was the chairman of the LNC and somebody came to me and went, hey, we want to, and I'm gonna say this because he's right in our Discord, so you can say whatever the fuck he wants to when he hears this. But like, if somebody was like, hey, we're gonna run Fat Dave for president, I'd be like, no, we're not gonna run Fat Dave for president. You're just gonna get us all kinds of bullshit in the media. Because that's all they're going to do, is they're going to hone in on stupid shit that you said on a podcast having fun. That's probably why I'm never going to run for anything big. Because they're going to come back to this shit and they're like, well, you called Though Bishop a retard and you said this word and that word. Fuck out of my face. Yeah, I did. You got me on camera? Yeah, I got myself on camera doing it. Even better. I film myself. That means I extra don't give a fuck that I said it. Fuck you. Like,
Yeah.
that's just the reality, man. Like, not everybody's meant to be a candidate. Like, but, and this is something I'm going to give a little nugget of knowledge that was bestowed upon me earlier this week, was we had Larry Sharp do a speaking engagement for the LPF, and the topic was grooming professional candidates. And one of the things he had said was that it's, because somebody brought up the idea of, oh, well, what about political organizing as a strategy for, running a candidate? And he just, put it bluntly, in my opinion, Larry just shit on that questioner and was just, no. He's like, I'm not even going to entertain that because it's not a strategy. He's like, the best option you have and that we have as a party, and I absolutely 100% agree with this, more than 100% agree, and it's why I'm stating this publicly, is that we have a better chance to win elections by running entertaining, interesting candidates who can speak to policies and issues that are libertarian than we do political organizing or door hanging. We just need people who are entertaining, can public speak, and that have policies already in mind, or have people who can come up with policies for them that are relevant to where they're running. If you're
I
running
think
in
that
Florida. Yeah,
that
go
was a
ahead.
big problem with a lot of the candidates, including Joe Jorgensen, that I've seen. Is these people just seem very disconnected from the climate of what's going. It's almost like they're in a bubble.
Elitist.
Yeah,
It's an elitist mentality, man. Like, let's keep it real. You know, we went from Gary Johnson, two-term, Republican governor of a state. This is a guy who is if I'm not mistaken, he's made a few $1 million over the course of his life with his construction business. The guy built his own house. He travels the world. You
Did
got
did you
Joe
know
Jordan.
did you know that Gary Johnson climbed Mount Everest? He doesn't talk about it much, but man, yeah, he climbed Mount
Oh yeah,
Everest.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know. I know he uses medical marijuana. Like he got put on the medical marijuana and owns his own dispensaries because he got into an accident mountain climbing, and I think he had a pretty serious back injury that still affects him. So that's why he smokes a lot of weed. Like people just think he gets high to get high. Like no, the dude has a serious medical situation he went through that he probably needs to deal and regulate that pain. But yeah, I have a problem with Gary Johnson. I don't have a problem with Joe Jorgensen either. I donated to the Jorgensen campaign. Oh, why did you hate Jorgensen? I didn't. I preferred Hornberger, but when Jorgensen came up, that's still okay. Well, she was not the greatest candidate, but she was my candidate. But you took an an older lady who's a college professor for psychology, cool, and we didn't focus on the things that made her kind of interesting, she likes to drink bourbon, she likes to play hockey. These are things that are weird that you don't hear people talk about, but they're interesting. I was interesting for me. Put people on the stupid shit. At that point, you're not going to win the election, make your candidate viable and then keep running them. That was why Gary Johnson did so well the second time around, because half the fucking people who were voting for him knew who he was the second time around already. So they were showing for him to all their friends because, yeah, I voted for him last election. He's cool. He wants to legalize pot.
Yeah, well, the problem was the Gary Johnson of 2016 was a very different Gary Johnson from the Gary Johnson of 2012. There was just a different mentality, and there's a reason why people like Dave Smith say you worked for the Bill Weld campaign, because the sales pitch was that they were going to govern as a team, as compared to the Gary. Honest to God, in 2020, when Judge Jim Gray jumped into the race, in my opinion, all he had to do, he managed to fuck it up, but all he had to do was jump into the race and say, hey guys, I'm from the Gary Johnson campaign that didn't suck. It was really just, I don't know. There was a big difference between the Gary Johnson of 2012 and the Gary Johnson of 2016. So much so
I
that I didn't
agree.
even vote that year, man. I went to Disney. I went to fucking Universal Studios with the chick I was dating at the time instead of fucking going to the ballot box because Gary Johnson wasn't fucking worth it. Sorry.
And I'll just, because I see Joey in the chat, Gary Johnson had fucking Bill Weld as his VP, bro. Hey, I wasn't a delegate at that convention. I didn't
We
vote for
almost
Bill
had
Weld.
Larry Sharp. I
We
wasn't there at
almost
that convention, but people have told me that apparently we almost had Larry Sharp.
we came the width of a CUDA hair close to getting Larry Sharp. I think it was less than 15 votes, 10 votes. It was very, very close. I remember it was very close. It came down to it. And the reality was that we had Bill Weld. So what are you going to do now? Are you just, at my point, I was like, okay, I'm not supporting Bill Weld. I'm supporting Gary Johnson.
Okay,
That was just how I looked at it.
that's
And
what
I
I
was
was
disappointed.
that's what I was doing, but I still remember the moment where I realized I just couldn't support this guy, and that's when I was up in Michigan visiting family, and that's where the infamous Hillary Clinton, a fine civil
Yes.
servant,
Yep. That
that
was where I
infamous
lost
shit
it with him.
happened, and that was where I was
That
just
was
like,
it.
I was
I was
angry
like, what
because
the
I remember
fuck
the
is that?
Republicans and bro, the Republicans in my family, as they told me, it's like, if your guy attacks Trump, we get it, man, it's politics, but the fact that he's kissing Hillary's ass.
Oh, bro, I had
Like,
so many friends who were who were lefties who were like, look, your guy likes Hillary. You should vote for Hillary too. I'm like, because that was the thing. I didn't have a lot of like the Republicans in my family, they didn't pay attention. Like they didn't like they're like old school neocon like Republicans. They had no idea what the Libertarian Party was until like I came around. And even now they're like, "Oh, you guys are the like pot smoking wing of the Republican Party."
Pretty much. I mean, yeah, I mean that time there definitely was much more of a neocon vibe. Weirdly enough, I think Trump kind of pushed the needle a little bit, at least. To where a lot of those people aren't as neocon as they used to be, but they still definitely aren't in the libertarian realm of things.
No. But speaking of libertarian realm, we're getting close to about that time, Mitch.
That's why I have put on our little stream here, or at least I'm
Oh,
trying to get it all
you're
started here.
beautiful.
The kill stream.
Well, we can mute it for now. We got 9 minutes.
Yeah,
We'll just keep. We'll keep it up.
we'll keep it going. Why not? Like, see what
Yeah,
else
fuck it.
crazy stuff's going on.
Yeah,
Oh
we'll just
man,
run it. You know, if we
yeah,
want
we
to.
might as well. This is a pre-show too. We might as well talk about the debate a little bit. I mean, is there
Yeah,
anything
that's
we
what I
can
was
really
gonna
say?
say. Um,
The broken. You just saw the broken Matt Hardy thing, right?
yeah, I just saw that. I'm sorry. That caught me flat-footed with the Photoshop.
If any of you are pro wrestling fans, I really hope you get
Ah,
that.
that was fucking funny, man. I like. See, this is why I love the Liberty community. Every now and again, you get some funny shit like that you just aren't expecting.
There's like, I mean,
Uh,
that's kind of why I love the whole caucus culture. Like pro
I'll,
wrestling, fucking all those different ones.
oh, dude, like, not even like, yeah, I guess, but
I mean,
like,
when I say
I
that, I
thought you
just
were.
mean like all the different social groups.
No, I got what you were saying, but like, I was thinking more to like, specifically with like, obviously the Mises Caucus with us, like, we've really put together a really great culture, and a lot of like that is, you see a lot of that like heavy metal like culture and pro wrestling culture, like a lot of those like jokes that you tell amongst your buddies and like three of them get like a lot more people like get than you expect, and you're kind of like, oh, holy shit, there's a very similar, like I always joke all the time with us, there's a very similar like background that we all come from that got us to this point that we're at.
No, I feel
And
that,
this
man. No, I
and
feel that.
this is, yeah, and man, and this is why some people feel that Nick Fuentes is a fellow traveler.
God, fellow traveler thing. I mean,
Oh,
you know,
where's Archie at? What's
I
up,
don't know. I
Arch?
don't know. We
I hope you're watching too, bud.
if there's ever an election, I'm going to get him in our swamp creatures. Just so you know, I'm going to get him to endorse someone. It's like the
Who,
strategic.
Fuentes or
No,
Archie?
Archie.
Oh, fuck it, he can endorse me, I'll still win.
You sure? Well,
I'll
let's
win
see.
because Archie. I'll win because Archie endorsed me. Archie won't endorse me, but I'll say that anyway. Now he won't endorse me, even if you pay him to do it. Just out of spite of the fact I said I would take his endorsement willingly.
I mean, originally I was going to give the endorsement to Rich, but now all of a sudden,
Oh yeah, give it to Rich. He'll get super pissed. He's not here, so we can just talk shit about him now. But yeah, he'll be like super pissed. Like, bro, why did you do this to me? I'll be like,
it's
hey man,
politics, bro.
yeah, sorry man. Somebody had to eat that L. Sorry, it had to be you.
Like,
So
I'm
what do
sure
you?
there's other strategic endorsements that could come into place too.
All right. So enough of Archie Flowers and his goofy behind. Let's talk about this debate that we're about to witness in the next couple minutes. So, Nick Fuentes, Dave Smith, statism is the topic, supposedly.
Yeah.
What are we about to see, Mr. Cotter?
I think that we're going to see Nick come more from a nationalist, populist perspective, and you're going to see Dave basically carry the torch of Murray Rothbard as a sort of anarcho-capitalist. This is just what
All
I
right.
think we're going to end up seeing. Plus,
Well,
based on where that word where the whole fellow traveler thing comes from, I could just see that going in that direction. What about you, Josh?
um, kind of a similar situation. I think Dave's gonna come from kind of this like anarcho-capitalist persuasion where, he'll consent to a few like minarchist like policies that, kind of make sense to him if, you play some mental gymnastics. And Fuentes is going to come from that, nationalist, almost like post, I don't want to say post libertarian because that's a really bad way to analogize it, but just
I don't
this
know if you can
almost,
count him as a post-libertarian.
oh no, that's why I'm saying it's a bad
Yeah,
analogy because he's not. But,
gotcha.
it's, because I don't really want to call it hoppy in either, but it's this kind of idea of like, coming about it from this, like you said, like that nationalist populist perspective. I just, with a little bit more of what I always consider like a more forceful like sprinkle of salt.
Yeah, I as you know, I got to be honest here because Tim brought this up in the chat. If either of us have listened to Nick outside of libertarian circles, and to be real, no, my exposure to Nick primarily comes from Dave Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Which I find those sort of conversations interesting nonetheless because I like to see people who I agree with interact with other people who are willing to have sit down and have a good conversation. So
Mm-hmm.
I know a
Hey
lot of the
Mitch.
fakertarians, but what?
Oh, sorry to cut you off. Can we kill the chat box?
The chat box. What
Yeah, is
about it?
there a way to? Because
Let
that's
me
distracting
see.
as hell from me, and I know that at least one of the person in the chat.
Okay, let's see if I can figure this out. Because with Jeremy Kaufman coming on the 30th, we're gonna have to a talk with him about this.
Try the full screen the video.
Oh, nice.
Blam,
There we go.
blam,
Perfect. My fear was if
blam.
I went full screen, it would completely take away my ability. Okay, this is perfect. Nice.
There you go, Joey. You're welcome, Brody. I got you.
Alrighty. Okay, cool. So now we really got the
Oh
watch
yeah.
along thing going. I'll probably
Oh yeah.
kick on the stuff here in a second. But I really can't really say much else about Nick other than I've seen his name pop up in a lot of these different Trump events and stuff like that. So that's why I say like the populist. I feel like he's probably
Yeah.
closer to Bannon than he is to any of the other other right wingers.
Yeah, like I've seen him on, like my exposure to him is kind of minimal. Like I've seen him on Josh Smith's show a couple times, and like I really heard of him was like super duper controversial, but like nothing really appealed to me either per se.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt. I remember when I heard him, I was kind of thinking of the Fakertarians and all those type of people freaking out. I'm like, I mean, yeah, he's not one of us, but he's not like, oh my god, this is absolutely appalling,
Yeah, like they made him out to sound like I was gonna walk in and see like skinhead Joey like having a conversation with a swastika on his forehead, and like I got this dude in like an office chair who's just kind of like a pretty like he looks like a dude you'd see on a construction site. Like he's pretty normal. There's nothing like super crazy about him. Like he's not going off on these like wild crackhead tangents or like doing anything crazy. He's just like a normal dude talking. And I'm just like, "Oh, this is your fucking Nazi?" Uh-oh.
We reached 10, so I thought I would at least start the music up here.
Nah, that's cool. I mean, if you want to throw a invite out to a few other people and populate the underneath window with a few more screens, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I'll shoot to some of our Twitter friends and see who wants to stop on by.
Yeah. They said 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it is
Yeah,
Eastern Standard. Oh,
they still just cycling through the thing.
Not no more. That's new to fucking me.
Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to the Kill Stream. I am your host, Ethan Ralph, the owner and the editor-in-chief of the
Here we go.
RalphReturn.com. There we have Dave Smith in there. I think he can hear me right now. We can't hear him just yet, but I see him in the call. Nick Fuentes should be here shortly. We're starting right at 10, shockingly enough for me.
Right.
Well, that's only because I've been streaming all day already, so that's a good way to stay on time. If I just start 12 hours early, then
I'm gonna go
well, not 12. 10,
use
whatever.
the bathroom before this
9,
starts.
10,
Give me.
whatever. So Dave is here. I see Swiss Experiments is the buffering fixed here. I think Odyssey was having that a little issue there. We're on Odyssey, we're on Cozy, we're on YouTube, we're everywhere. About 2.5 grand just on my platforms. Other platforms, well over 7, 8 grand watching right now. Waiting as we approach the bewitching hour. I guess we're in the hour already, actually.
All right, so I also dropped the link into the Discord. If any of you folks want to come up here, I see Tim's telling me to turn it up, so I'm going to turn it up.
Let's see. I forget which side is which. Okay, so it's the Chrome's on. Okay. All right, Dave, can you hear? They still can't hear you, by the way, but can you hear me? And can you say something so I can pin you? There you go. Okay, got you pinned to the screen. That's all we needed right there. I'll just I'll give it a second. If Nick's not here in the next 3 or 4 minutes, then I'll just kick it to you, and we'll start with your intro. Maybe since you've not been on the show, is what I mean. Like, introduce yourself to the audience, not like the debate portion or anything. Yeah, it wouldn't make sense to have you start. You're right. I couldn't hear what you said, but I'm assuming that you said something like that. But yeah. Okay, so we'll just wait a minute. Let me switch back over here. All right. So we're ready to go. Let me actually unmute the tab so we can hear the audio here. Gator, can you hear me? You here?
Yes, I can. I am still here.
All right. Good deal. What should we do? You know, we could do, we have another hat to give away. If somebody wanted to come on, this would be kind of a tough spot to ask them to do that. But
I'm
we've given
rolling
away
up for
4
this.
hats today. People coming on singing Christmas carols. If they wanted to sing a Christmas
Oh,
carol
I'm in.
here at the top of the main event. I mean,
Free
that
hat
would
for a
be
Christmas Carol. I'm in.
that would be an epic Christian and Christmas moment, I think. If we have any takers on that, do we? Oh, we do. Hold on, wait. Bojack 420.
Takers on that, do we?
Great.
Oh my God, that's not good. That audio didn't sound great there. All right. So we'll see if we get somebody to step up and sing a song. Gator, do you want to sing a song?
I don't know what I'd say. Probably wouldn't
I'd
be
sing a
Christmas
song. I mean, shit, I was a thespian.
No,
It's like second nature.
All right, now
You would be a
let's see.
thespian.
Looking through
I
Twitter
was.
here.
I was.
If you're watching live, send out the link. We still got a couple minutes before we start. Kansas Zoomer.
Kansas
if you want
Zuma
TTS,
sent
get those in.
$3. Good evening, friends. Christ is King. Smile, love. Kansas Zuma.
Now, yeah.
I gotta
if you wanna
find a
get
new
those in now,
donation
'cause I'm gonna turn
platform
those
like
off.
that.
We'll have a period mid-debate or something when we play a few of those, get some questions in. But for the most part, this is going to be off. All right, let's see here. Looking through Twitter, I think everything's pretty much ready. Got him pinned on Chrome. Just waiting for Mr. Fuentes here. I knew he was going to be a couple minutes late. Kanye Weiss, go ahead.
Kanye_Weiss sent $30. Let's give other hat away.
Let's give another hat away. Fuck
Are you
it.
using
Okay.
Streamlabs?
Well, they have to sing, though. That's the only thing. Frankie X, are you
Yeah,
there?
it's Streamlabs.
Hey, I'm here. What's up?
What's up? Do you want to sing for a hat?
Sure, I'll absolutely sing.
Okay, what's your song?
I'll sing White Christmas.
Okay, why not? Let me see. Let me get the karaoke version. You're definitely getting a hat, too, because we needed this. Okay, now...
Now there's there's the low part and then there's the high part. I'll do both. I'll do the show.
I know the song. I kind of know what you're talking about. Hold on, let me fire it up here.
It starts like.
You mean where it's really low? I'm dreaming. Yeah, can you do it? Yeah, I know
What
what
was
you're
that
talking
in
about.
Home Alone or I don't know. It's something.
Yeah, can you really lay it in? All right, well, we're about to find out. Now, you should be able to... Okay, now, hold on. Let me do this real quick so you can see me in Discord. Can you see me?
Hold on, let me see.
Look at the
Yeah,
screen.
I can see it on Discord. Yeah.
Okay, good. You should be able to see the lyrics.
Tell
on
you,
the
this
screen.
is
Can you
not
see
how I
those, too?
expected to begin this.
Yes.
All right, I'll turn these on.
Tyler Russell sent $3. Let's
Well, maybe not the Bing Crosby version. Maybe the other version by the Drifters. The Drifters is what we
Drifters.
need.
Wait,
the Drifters,
oh.
correct?
The other version, other than Bing Crosby. Okay, yeah. All right.
Yeah, it's way better.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Right. I'm the fool. Okay. Now let me pull up the
What a
Drifters
hipster.
version. Holy shit. Okay. I think this is a far be it for me to pick the most famous song of all time by the most famous. Okay. Sorry. I almost said it more. All right.
Jack Allen conspiracy or Jack sent $3 pump to watch this. Thanks, Ethan and guys.
All right. Thank you as all. Also, man, this thing just has a fucking. Oh, I think it's because I put it on there twice. That's what it is. Okay. Finally figured that out. All right. Let's go. Are you about ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
Okay. This is it right here.
Mitch.
Thank you, Dave.
What's up?
Here.
Just
This is your
spamming the
intro
link
the kill stream. Hey, I
to
can't-
a bunch of people.
Look, man, we're giving away hats.
see who
It's
could come in.
Christmas. What else are we going to do? We're waiting for the other person. All right. Okay.
You're
You
about
ready?
to get
I don't think I can hear the
copyright.
YouTube video.
You can't hear
Am
this
I
at all?
actually copyright
We're
claimed?
good. Yep, we're good.
What's going on?
Oh,
Should
he's
we,
saying mute. Yeah, mute for the song, just in case, because we're
Just
on
yeah, we might as
YouTube.
well be careful.
Yeah. They're
So
gonna
I,
be
I
like,
guess
I
I
don't-
guess we could take this moment to be like, wow, this is not how I expected this to begin.
No, look at Dave. He's just like, what the fuck am I dealing with right now?
Yeah, I think he might have, myself included. I didn't expect this to, be this. Where the hell's Nick Fuentes too? Like, is he no
Well, they said he was going to be a little late.
Oh, they did. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, we gotta find a way to do one of these Christmas songs. I want a hat now.
I'll make you a hat. Like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, that's right, lids. I mean, I have a hat back here from the main sponsor. You know what sponsor
We need
that
some.
is?
What sponsor, Mitch?
It is Drip Cannabinoids. Oh man, it feels nice to be able to finally use this thing. But anyways, yeah, Drip Cannabinoids for your good Delta 8 and Delta 10 products. Use code word Mitch at checkout for 10% off. I figure since we're waiting for them to finish that, I might as well get a shameless plug in since they're making money off of Streamlabs.
Yeah. I mean, why not? We can't get super chats just quite yet.
No. Is there like a threshold you have to reach with Google and YouTube to do that, or what's the?
I think it's 500 subscribers. Don't quote me on that to get super chats activated.
Really? Huh.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to look into that because I'm curious now. But yeah, I'm wondering how this debate is going to be moderated now. Just seeing kind of how this setup is, because I feel like Mark Claire has always done a really good job. But this
So this is not Mark Claire for sure.
Yeah. Might bring on the guy who I'm planning on giving the Robbie Bernstein treatment on my show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know how Dave, his gimmick was that he would bring Robbie the Fire Bernstein on every episode and renew his contract every episode until he finally said, okay, you're just the co-host.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm doing this to this one guy, my buddy Tyler, and I'm seeing if we can get him on right now as one of our people.
Nice.
Fucking movies, goddamn Spider-Man.
Oh, do we have it here?
Oh, let's get back to the show.
Turn the sound on, Mitch.
Can you hear me, Nick?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Oh, there's
I can
Fuentes.
hear you, sir. All right, I got you pinned
Oh,
here. I'll fix
God.
this stuff.
I'm not a
up
fan of the
here.
mustache, I must say.
Now, Dave
not a
has
fan
been
of
here
the
for a
suit.
minute, and I think he's ready to go. So I'm gonna let him go ahead and
It's the mustache of
start
that
it off.
guy. you knew
Start
from
the
high school who
festivities
couldn't do a
off
mustache.
and introduce yourself too. You've not been on the show, tell people who you are if you want. Up to you how deep you want to go into that. And welcome and thank you for joining us here on the Kill Stream.
Yeah, thank you for having me. You hear me good?
Yeah.
Yep, you sounding great.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you. Thanks,
better?
Nick, for doing this.
Yeah,
and,
a little better.
Yeah, I'm Dave.
I'll turn
I'm
down
a
this
comedian and a libertarian. Yeah, I don't know. You guys can look into me if you need to know more about me. I don't know. What do you want, a bio, or you want me to
No,
just?
I mean it's up to you. Right? That's what I'm saying. It's the beauty of the question. You can take it as far as you want. You can just say, "Hey, I'm Dave Smith."
I'll be completely honest. I am thrown off by what the hell this show is. I just came on and witnessed the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
Well, we had to kill time. What
Okay,
else?
so
You just
Dave's
want me to
with
sit
us.
here
We
and
were going to
twiddle
be
my thumbs?
singing Christmas carols with a white
He's like
supremacist
on
chat
our
going on in the back.
It's Christmas, man. It's Christmas. Oh,
I don't mean that. I mean that in the best sense.
I know.
White
It's,
supremacist chat.
of course.
Go figure, the Jewish guy.
Now, yeah, again, Dave Smith. Like I said, you can
Okay,
take it as far as you want, as little as you want.
Yo,
but
check out
other
Dave
than that,
Smith's
it's your
butt
opening
plug
statement
on
too,
his
so you
fucking,
can
shelf
go
behind
ahead
his
and go
head.
in on that too.
Sure. Okay. Well, thanks everybody
It's
for
a butt plug.
doing this, and thank you, Nick. It's
Yeah,
good
who
to
knew
see you
him and his
again,
wife
brother.
were
together? Took
It's
a
been
monumental
a little while. Me and Nick
butt
had
plug.
I had him on my podcast twice, and I enjoyed both the conversations we had. So I think we'll enjoy this, and we both kind of learn a little bit more about where each of us are coming from. I don't know that much about Nick's views other than the fact that I am kind of in awe of how much he triggers people, and it's really something that I will confess I do not completely understand. But people send me like all types of clips. Someone who then Nick, and so let me just take this opportunity, starting off, to denounce everyone who asks me to denounce Nick Fuentes. I don't care, and I hate this. It's not even. I don't even care what his politics are or what views he has that you think are awful. Even if he has awful views, it does not justify this insane hyperventilating that is all over the internet. But I tip my hat to you. You definitely trigger a lot of the right people. So congratulations on that. So anyway, I'm interested to have this conversation and maybe figure out some more stuff about where we stand. So I guess the topic was pretty broad in how it was presented to me, at least just kind of talking about state authority and statism in general. And I think that I would try I would ask, I know me and Nick both have a lot of, passionate fans and supporters. And I would say to both groups, number one, I think there's no need for us to all be enemies here. We can disagree with each other, but I think that both groups could probably gain something from the other one. And so try your best to kind of listen to what the other one has to say and see if maybe there's not something of value that could be added there. I am going to try to pitch you on believing in liberty and a free society and free markets in perhaps a slightly different way than you guys have heard it before. And I'm not just going to make the moral case for libertarianism, which I 100% believe in, but I'm going to try to make more of the case of why I think right-wingers in America today should recognize state authority as the biggest threat to them. And I don't think really, if you think it through, it's that difficult to make that case. I think that obviously the number one threat to right-wingers in America today is the fact that the war on terrorism has been turned inward domestically, and the target is right-wingers in America. And of course, ironically, when I was about Nick's age, this is what, the right-wingers were supporting, the creation of the war on terrorism. But of course, at the time, it seemed okay to be for state power because it was done under the banner of nationalism and protecting the country. And, it wasn't directed at them, it was directed at the enemy. But I certainly think there's a lesson to be learned there.
Eventually, the enemy becomes you.
The threat of the COVID regime, which is not exclusively a threat to right-wingers, but is a threat to the health of the nation, unlike anything I've seen in my lifetime. I mean, there's a genuinely totalitarian movement that is sweeping the globe. And if you look at countries like Australia, Austria, France, Germany, countries like New York City, Los Angeles. This is I think a different type of threat than we faced before. Of course, you also have public schools that are basically in the business now of brainwashing. I mean, they've always been in the business of brainwashing, but now it's a little bit more aggressive, I think, than it's been before, and certainly with avowed anti-right-wing propaganda. And so I think all of these things are things that right-wingers should be focused on. But I would say if I could convince one book that I'll try to persuade both Nick and his audience to read. Okay, there might be more down the road, but one that I'll start with is The Betrayal of the American Right by Murray Rothbard. And I highly recommend that people check this out. And I know one of the things that I liked about Nick and what I really enjoyed in our conversations is that he, like me, is a real student of political history and political movements and political theory. And one of my favorite things about the whole Groyper movement was that they have a healthy contempt for conservatism, Inc. And the history of the right-wing movement in America has basically been the right wing being subverted and destroyed from within. And at every turn, this was to make the right wing, to rid them of the anti-statists and increase the level of statism that they supported. And what the paleoconservative movement, which I know Nick, at least last time we talked, identified as a paleoconservative, but the paleoconservative movement was really trying to do was harken back to what Murray Rothbard in this great book called The Old Right, which were the original right-wingers before the CIA plant Bill Buckley and the American vanguard of the Israeli lobby, the neoconservatives, took over the right-wing movement in America. This was the old right. And by the way, I know that's not controversial here to say, but in my world, that might be somewhat controversial, but I don't really give a shit because that's the truth. And we all know that that's what it is. So that's what has subverted the right-wing movement at every turn. And the original old right, these were people who, it was a group of people who basically allied with the conservative wing of the Republican Party, and they were radically anti-statist. Radically, by today's standards, absolutely just radical libertarians. I mean, these were people who opposed the New Deal and Social Security. I mean, forget like the Great Society and, you know, the national security state and all of this. And great men like Mr. Republican Robert Taft didn't want us to be a part of NATO. He opposed entry into World War II. He was by today's standard, an anti-statist to his core. And I would just suggest that perhaps you guys should consider that there's real merit to this idea. There's real merit to the idea that a lot of right-wingers look around and they're outraged by the culture that we live in. And I think, of course, there's the left-wing caricature of this that a lot of people, particularly I think Nick's fans, enjoy playing into because it triggers the fuck out of everybody. And I'll admit I get a kick out of it. But to have a problem with the state of American culture today is not simply to be the left-wing caricature. It's not simply to say, well, I hate blacks and Jews and gays and all of that. I mean, I think the truth is that that might describe some people, but it really doesn't describe everybody. And I honestly don't think it describes Nick. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I really don't think it does. I think that people look around at this culture and they see degeneracy. They see broken families, a lack of religion, a lack of purpose, a lack of community. They see wild libertinism to the point where, like, there is just, you know, you like, if, like I got a young daughter, you want her to grow up in a world where every girl's showing their ass on whatever, Instagram and TikTok and all of this, and they reject this whole culture. And I think in many ways they realize that this is not normal. There is something profoundly abnormal about this. And if that's where you're coming from, I am telling you that you are right, and that the state is the primary cause of all of that. And this goes way back to the beginning, from Social Security being created, which completely, the reason why the old, explicit reasons why the old right was opposed to Social Security is because they recognized it for what it was, which was an attempt to undermine the family unit. because the original Social Security was always that, yeah, you would have a lot of kids and kind of invest into them, and you'd be incentivized to keep your family together and make sure that they became upstanding people in the world so that they could take care of you in their old age. And all down the line, I mean, this is true about public schools, this is true about welfare, of course, Social Security. These were all roles that were traditionally done by families, churches, and local communities. And the state overtook all of these roles. So is it really a shock that as the state has grown bigger and bigger, undermined local communities, churches, and families? Now, of course, I mean, we could go through this to like every level of how the state has increased over the years, but my main argument here would be for right-wingers that right now it really behooves you to wonder why the deep state and the powers that be and everybody who's been subverting the right wing for all of these decades now has always been trying to root out the anti-statists. And this is true whether it's about non-interventionism. This is true whether it's in opposition to the welfare state, opposition to the surveillance state, opposition to pretty much any big government program you could think of. And so I don't know. I guess I could start there and hear what Nick has to say.
Go ahead, Mr. Fuentes, and welcome back to the show. Appreciate you stopping by tonight. Appreciate you as well, Mr. Smith. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So I'll start out by saying apologies for my lateness. I was getting set up trying to put Ethan Ralph's stream on my channel, and I was thinking, in typical statist fashion, I was taking his stuff for the greater good. and this is okay. And sometimes it's okay to take people's things if it serves the greater good. And now a larger audience can watch this vigorous discussion. So I will say in the first place, of course, thank you as always to Ethan Ralph for hosting us here. Thank you to Dave Smith for participating in this debate. I have to say, Dave Smith, you're the coolest libertarian there is.
Good
That's
intro
not
from
really
Dave.
a high standard, to be fair, especially these days. But Dave Smith, I mean, you really are like the guy that's hanging on. I know the libertarian moment is sort of past. I watched your debate recently with the chair of the Libertarian Party, and you sort of talked about some of the reasons for that. And I was a libertarian. When I hear you talk, when I hear your show, you remind me why I used to be a libertarian. I think you're probably the best defender of the ideology. And of course, we appreciate your candor. We appreciate you. I'm talking about me and my followers. Appreciate you being able to come on this program and engage in a discussion with me. And, every time you get asked to disavow me, I always appreciate you're not like, oh, I'm not going to disavow him. You're like, no, fuck you. I won't disavow. So I very much appreciate that attitude, or very similar in that regard. So I'll just say at the outset, everything that I heard, for the most part, I agreed with about 95% of what Dave just said. It was very well done. It's very tactical. It's very persuasive. You tailored your message to this audience when you talk about degeneracy and the decline of America, Mr. Republican,
I like Dave's
Robert
reaction
Taft,
faces.
Con Inc., the Israel lobby, all
We
this
gotta make
stuff.
more
It's
memes of
music
those
to my
things.
ears. And I think that we agree actually on a lot. We agree that this government is doing a lot of things that are tyrannical and evil. For example,
Dave Smith agrees with Nick
COVID
Fuentes,
tyranny
confirmed
and now the
Nazi.
new war on terror against conservatives. This is what my show has been about for the past 2 years. And I think there's probably very little that we disagree on as far as why those things are wrong and, that those things are wrong. Where the disagreement comes in is what you mentioned towards the end, which is, you talked about some of the overlap and why people should sort of hear you out, or why the message of liberty is actually sort of conducive to our interests. And you said, towards the end, after all that buildup, that all these things are caused by the state. And that's the part that I take issue with. Certainly, a lot of the problems in America today are caused by this state and the people running this state. I think the difference is that I don't see the state in itself as an actor. To sort of harken back to the old days, I believe that the sort of axiom is that only an individual can act. Human beings act, that's sort of a Misesian axiom. An individual can act, but groups, institutions cannot act. And so when the state does things, really what we mean to say, much like when we say the state spends money on things, really we mean the state spends the taxpayers' money on things. The state doesn't do things, it's the people within the state that do things. And why is it that the people in the state do these things? I think it has a lot to do with the character of the people in the state. I think it has a lot to do with who they are, their identity, their ideology. And so when I look around at some of the problems like COVID tyranny or the war on terror, for example, I don't think the problem is that we have a state in itself or that it's the state that's existing that is the cause of these things, but it's the kinds of people that are in the state. And there was something sort of telling that you said, go back to the beginning, the New Deal. You said that Republicans even opposed the New Deal, not just the Great Society, not just the war on terror, but even the New Deal. And it's sort of interesting that, for a lot of libertarians, that's really maybe the starting point. Not all, some go further than that. But for a lot of libertarians, the starting point sort of the downward slide towards the road to serfdom or authoritarianism starts somewhere in the 20th century with something like the New Deal. Maybe you go back further, it's income tax, Federal Reserve. But I think that we could trace the problems that you described, degeneracy, sort of the government taking over civil society, the decline of civil society. A lot of these problems can be traced back even further, of course, than 60 years ago or 100 years ago. Julius Evola has this expression. He says that basically, I'm paraphrasing, everything after the French Revolution was a mistake. And if you read certain counter-enlightened philosophers like Evola or like de Maistre, they are principally concerned with things, or Edmund Burke for that matter. He's not so much counter-enlightenment, but similar. They really look at the French Revolution sort of as the beginning of the end. And, so I would say it's not even so much the state that is the problem, because there have been states in all times, in all places.
So is he
There's never
asking
been
to
a
go
society,
to
as
like
far as I know,
a
with rare
monarchy?
or weird exceptions, that does not have a state, where there is not sort of organized violence, where there is not legitimate authority wielded and exercised. We live in a society, and that's something that has always been part of a society and always will be part of a society. And so any reference point that we have for better or worse is always going to be another state. In the past 100 years, a nation state, but always throughout history, if we're to look at better or
I will
worse for
say he's
comparison,
very well
we're talking
versed
about
with
another
history.
society with the state.
Mm-hmm.
And why would another society with the state be better or worse than this society with this state? Well, it's because it's different people living within the country, and it's different people ruling the country. And so a lot of the problems that you see today have to do actually with the fundamental premise of libertarianism, which is this. The idea that the government can be dissolved and people can solve their own problems. This is loaded with a lot of philosophical assumptions about mankind and about what we can know and what people know and how people make decisions. And so sort of the conceit of libertarianism is that individuals, number one, that's the building block of society, is an individual person. And nobody knows what that is, man, woman, child. It's just it's an individual person with apparently a heart or a brain. I don't know how, maybe like Siamese twins factor into that, but we have an individual sort of individuated person as the basic building block. And libertarians say about that person that inherent in them is this faculty, this rationality, where they are able to discern socially and politically what is right and wrong. They're able to discern, according to even our founding fathers, what is self-evidently, the kinds of rights that inhere in us, and the sort of non-aggression principle, which libertarians take as axiomatic, don't hurt people, don't take their things. And therefore, if people possess this rationality, they have this faculty to discern these things for themselves, then they can govern themselves. And I think that is the conceit behind everything that we've seen for the past 300 years, which would include democracy, which would include liberalism in itself, which would include Marxism, which would include all these kinds of things, all these ideas which have poisoned the well society and created a lot of the problems that you talk about, which I know you don't like democracy. I know ANCAPs and libertarians, a lot of them don't like democracy. But inherent in that is, why we got democracy was from this conceit that both libertarianism and liberalism are built on, which is that, this rationality and the sovereignty of the individual. And so I would point the finger actually, to sort of summarize this and close this up, for my opening statement, where are all the problems in society today, whether they be in the public or the private sector, the domain of the government or the domain of private actors, individuals acting in society? The problem is not the institution. I don't believe that institutions, they can be problems, But the real problems come from man. They come from the problem of evil. People are evil. People have hubris or can be arrogant or ignorant. And people, whether they're running government or whether they're running some other institution, that is the source of the problems, not the institution itself. Get rid of government, you'll have the same problems, but different institutions, and we'll just call them something else. If we really want to look at the genesis of these problems, we have to know why the elites believe the things they do, why they've taken the course that they have, and why people in the society act in the way that they do too. And that has a lot to do with the ideas. They happen to be the ideas that are the ones that libertarianism is based upon. So that's to summarize my opening statement.
Now, Dave, if you want to follow up on that, or I could start asking questions too. But did you want to follow up on his opening statement there, and do you have anything?
Sure. Okay, so I guess I don't really disagree with the idea that it's not like, obviously institutions are made up of the people who are in those institutions, and so whether that's the state or any other institution, I mean, that's, to me, seems fairly self-evident. I mean, I don't have I'm not going to refute that, of course, but I think that the point is that it's not just about the institutions. It's not just about the state existing. It's about what the state is doing and what our end goal should be. And what our end goal should be is for them to stop doing all of the evil things that they are doing. So you can talk whatever you want to about the character of the people who are in the state, but you know what? 2019 was a lot better than 2021 is, because there weren't all of these insane mandates and restrictions and all of this hysteria. So likewise, no matter what, that's just a basic truth about how different institutions work. And the state is an institution that is somewhat unique, and I think you would grant that the state is unique from other institutions, and there is a reason why all of these bad actors flock to the state, and it's because this is the best way for a minority to impose their will on the majority. Democracy is not just that I don't like democracy or that it doesn't make sense on paper. Democracy is a myth. We do not live under a democracy. We live under an oligarchy, and I think just about everybody knows that. And I think what right-wingers should recognize is that so much of what you are battling, so much of the, kind of like the woke insanity is incredibly unpopular and could only be forced on you through these institutions. And this is all over the place, whether it's, college, which is essentially just a government program backed up by government-backed loans and now just government granted loans, whether it's the corporate press, which is just basically the media arm, the propaganda arm of the state, whether it's the actual politicians or the deep state, which is basically fairly convinced that all of wokeism is basically just a CIA plot anyway. But I can really make a strong argument for that if we end up getting into that later. But so, yeah, it's not 100%. Just that it's an institution, it's that it's an institution capable of perverting the natural order of society. And the natural order is, I think, going to be something closer to what a lot of right-wingers would like, where why is it that families would tend to stay together rather than break up? Why would it naturally be that a woman, say, wouldn't want to be a single mother and pump out a whole bunch of kids? And it's because the natural order is you're going to be screwed over if you do that. And it's really only the state that can come in and completely pervert all of these incentives. Now, to Nick's other point about libertarianism being built on this idea that somehow every individual is some rational thinker who can understand the non-aggression principle and can kind of make all of these wise decisions, that is just not what the libertarianism that I represent is based on at all. There might be something about in the Chicago school kind of libertarian theory where it's like that everyone's like a rational actor in the economy, but
going for a kill.
The real shit that I'm representing, the Ron Paul, Mises Rothbard, Lou Rockwell, Hans Hermann Hoppe, that school, none of us are saying that. The only claim is that human beings do act as individuals, as you mentioned earlier. So that's, and then things are built from there. But no, the claim isn't that people are rational. I mean, that's a very subjective term, really. And I think that the way that the people who run our government currently are running it could be very soundly argued is irrational.
Okay. So, Ralph, can I jump in there?
Sure, go ahead and jump in. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, some interesting points there. So I guess I would start with your first counter, which is 2019 was better than 2021. It's sort of like, yeah, exactly. Because in 2019, Donald Trump was the president, and in 2021, we now have Joe Biden, or, the deep state.
So do 2019 and 2020 then.
Man, he just
pivoted. You could say that Trump made some flawed decisions, but I think the point is to say that the state in itself was not the problem. And that's sort of the tricky thing here. And this is where I think a lot of people become libertarians, because they sort of equate the fruits of a particular state in a particular time.
He's not even addressing Dave's point.
And so, yeah, of course, I think that you're right. Operation Warp Speed, that's one of my only major hangups remaining with Trump. He got rid of Kushner, Adelson's dead, Netanyahu's not in power, but he's still pushing this vaccine. It's horrible. But nevertheless, Trump in 2020 is better than Obama. Trump in 2020 is better than Biden now. The point is to say that it matters who is running the government. And to sort of get to I think the more important point is this. You asked sort of at the beginning of your rebuttal, what is to be done about these things? And to me, that's sort of the operative question. To me, that's more interesting and more relevant.
I mean, sure, 2019 looks better because there's no fucking pandemic.
I don't think that there is a general rule about what the role of government is. I think that the kind and character of the government is dependent on time and location and circumstance. I don't think that we could just say, government should be this or should be that, because it's going to derive from the character of the nation that it's governing, that instituted the government, or from where it arose. So to me, I think when we consider these questions, we have to talk about particulars. That's a big, I think, issue that I have with libertarians, is that they, and this is maybe not you, but Chicago school, Austrian school, they're concerned with these sort of abstractions about the individual and these kinds of things. So what is to be done in this particular circumstance? Well, all the problems that you talked about are being done basically by an organized group. You say it's the CIA, and you talk about the Israel lobby, and you could point towards, the deep state and other actors. The things that are happening to our country are being done to us. It's a conspiracy. It's group that are acting in an organized fashion, using an institution as a tool to act upon the society. Like you said, the minority imposing its will on the majority. And so we agree, I believe, right up until that point in some sense. I know you believe you're a little bit more radical. You want to you're an anarcho-capitalist, if I'm not mistaken, so you think there should be no state. But your approach then is to say, well, the problem is that the government is capable of these things. We have to neutralize the government. And my position about what is to be done is that we have to get into the state and use it to sabotage and destroy the people that are trying to destroy us. I am the minority that wants to impose my will on the society, as opposed to, getting rid of this tool entirely. And you said something at the beginning about the anti-statists are always the ones targeted by the government. I think that's plainly not true. I think that if you look at, any libertarian think tank, if you look at Reason, if you look at Cato, they're not targeted by the state in the same way that the Daily Stormer is, or like National Policy Institute was, or the rally attendees at Charlottesville. The Propertarians held their rally in Texas and nobody even cared. But when Charlottesville happened, they staged like false flag attack, whatever you want to believe about that. But they created chaos in order to impugn everybody there, create civil liability. So no, I would think that it's a very specific kind of person that's targeted by the state, and that is sort of white identitarian, sort of, national socialists, fascists. It's reactionaries. It's right-wing, sort of colored with a white identity people that want to sort of displace this government and replace it with something else. In other words, wrest control of state, and rather than destroying it, using it for their own ends. Libertarians seem to be, for the most part, are comparatively unbothered by the state. And the reason for that, to sort of arrive at the point, is because the people that are doing these things that you don't like, the people that are the architects of the war, the people that are throwing everyone in jail, the architects of the war on terror, COVID tyranny, all of that, they see us as a threat. They see the rival minority, the rival organized group, pining to displace them and take their power and use it against them as the real threat. And so what does
Take
that
their
say about what is
power
to be
and
done
use it
about all these
against
problems
them.
that you talk about? Is it to side with the people that are backed by the billionaires? When you look at Reason, when
Any
you look
man
at
who
Cato, a
thirsts
lot
for
of these
power is
libertarian
a
think tanks,
coward.
American Enterprise Institute, Mont Pelerin, do we side with the group that is backed by the billionaires, backed by the power that's in bed with the state, where the state is not threatened by it, where the state in some cases promotes it or prefers it? Or do we side with the people that have a little bit of more practical view of the state, which is that it is a tool and they want to displace those that are using it currently and ourselves acquire that and use it for our own ends? And I think that's maybe where we differ, is you think that this capability exists means that, and is doing all these things. It's that it exists, which is why we have these things. I believe it will always exist. And, rather than sort of trying to destroy it or be naive about it, the sort of propositionally negative attitudes towards it. Instead, we have to be the ones that are wielding it and using it for our own purposes.
Well, you sort of ridicule. I mean, I listened to some of your commentary before. You sort of ridiculed the notion of no state at all, which I'll kick to Dave is why I brought that up, because I watched some of your commentary. I think that's a fair description. What do you say to that, Dave? And that's not the only one. He's not the only one I've heard say that, right? Just the whole idea of no state existing whatsoever. That's like pie in the sky. And I'll let you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, we're all radicals here. So it's for one of the attacks on the other to be like, well, that doesn't seem practical. Okay, but Nick just said he's going to take over the government and start imposing his will on his enemies. Like, is that that's going to happen anytime soon? Does that seem practical? Yeah, practical. Yes, we are radicals. And sure, I think that anarcho-capitalism to me is the North Star of that's the desired end goal, and the closer you can get there, the better. I'd be very happy to see a huge, reduction in the size of state or mass decentralization or something like that. And I will agree that I think Nick is right that yes, I do think it's something inherent in the institution. And I think if Nick were to take over the state and start punishing his enemies, things would be very, very bad in that scenario as well. For lots of people, probably most of all, Nick, because you would probably just get shot in the head and taken over by someone else, or end up like, Trotsky with an ice pick in the side of the head. I think that's how he died, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, to your point, it's not that libertarians are saying, well, look, we don't recognize that there's a problem, that there are these groups of people who want to do these things. It's not, the problem isn't the state. The problem is that there's these people who want to do all of this evil shit. It's like, what we recognize is that they could only pull off this evil shit through the state. So you're not going to have lockdowns unless there is the government ability to enforce them. It would be impossible to do. You're not going to force businesses in any way to choose to turn down business. And those who do will suffer the consequences from it. You're not going to be able to force, if churches and families and communities are in charge of educating the kids, you're not going to be able to get them to push through the insane curriculum that you can if you have a centralized Department of Education coming out of Washington, D.C., dominating the rest of society. It's the only way that this stuff is going to happen. And no matter how many of those evil people there hasn't been an uptick in evil people. They've always existed. There's just been an uptick in the size and scope of government. Now, to your the point that you made after that, there was one other thing that I wanted to hit on. Fuck, maybe I might have just lost my train of thought on that one, but there was one other thing that you mentioned at the end. If it comes to me, I'll mention it.
Okay. So to jump in on that, see, I think there's this false equivalency where it's like, well, I'm a radical and I have this ambitious idea. You're a radical and you have this ambitious idea. So, we're all the same. It's like, well, you're talking about a stateless society, which has never existed anywhere in human history. I'm talking about somebody like, what I'm talking about happened 5 years ago. Donald Trump got in power and he made some mistakes. Don't get me wrong, made some personnel mistakes, but it was plausible, to say the least. That's but it was plausible that he could have came in and with a more sort of competent circle around him could have changed the tide of the country and could have done things that were, maybe unprecedented in American history in some sense, but certainly not unprecedented in world history, arguably maybe not even unprecedented in American history if you look at Jackson or Lincoln or some of the things they did. So, the thing that you're talking about has never happened. The thing that I'm talking about, plausibly, there was a non-zero percentage chance that could have happened just 5 years ago. And there's a non-zero chance that this could happen within the next 10 years. And so as far as plausibility goes, I think that's, you know, when I hear anarcho-capitalism, this is where I get a little bit lost. I mean, maybe you could say, well, shrink the government. Okay. I never went ANCAP even when I was a libertarian, because there's something inherently in me that when somebody says we're going to do something that's never, ever been done before in history, I just think, you know, that's not going to happen. I don't think that we do things. I don't think there are any new things under the sun. I think that we've seen enough sort of human behavior in the past 10,000 years or something that we basically know what we're going to get. And I don't really believe in progressivism in the sense that we are going to sort of alter our nature, alter the sort of fundamental structure of society in dramatic ways. I mean, the technology improves, the languages change, you know, there's sort of this undulating current, but the fundamentals don't really change. And so what I'm talking about is sort of these, you know, the undulating current, these sort of regime changes, these like 80-year cycles or whatever. And so that's the difference on that. As far as government goes, you know, well, this group of people wouldn't be able to do this if they didn't have the state. I mean, yeah, theoretically, but the problem is they do wield the state and they do wield all those other institutions. And so that's like, you know, if somebody is like patrolling your neighborhood and they're occupying your neighborhood and they have guns, I mean, you could sit around and say, well, you know, if they didn't have their guns, then they couldn't do this. And alternatively, you know, I want to get, you know, metaphorically, not literally, not a call to violence, but we want to organize our own minority of people around the righteous, you know, similar things that you believe in a certain sense. And we want to meet them, and then we want to have the control. And so I think then therein lies the differences. And this is where the ANCAP thing is kind of the crux of it. Can we eliminate power? Can we eliminate control? And I think that these things are fundamental to the structure of society because, as you know, people are unequal. And so naturally hierarchies will be created just by that fact. And any group of people, you'll have the smartest one, the dumbest one, people in the middle, the strongest one, the weakest one, people in the middle. You know, so hierarchies will always form. And so there will always be groups, there will always be hierarchies. You'll always have sort of more capable people or more cunning people, whatever you want to call it, but it's people that have sort of more than the others will accede to power. And as long as people are organized in groups, they'll have to make decisions as groups because conflicts will have to be mediated. Decisions will have to be made about the direction of the group because of scarce resources and the reality of political conflict with other groups. And at a certain point in the course of affairs, because people are social, gather together in groups because of hierarchies, leaders will rise up, group decisions must be made, and those decisions have to carry with it authority, legitimacy. You know, people can't just sort of opt out when they don't agree like a buffet of what they like. And so that's why the ANCAP thing is fundamental. Can we get rid of government? Can we get rid of hierarchies, power, asymmetries, these kinds of things? The use of force? No. So long as there's jealousy, scarce resources, the security dilemma, hierarchies, you know, it's sort of in our nature, as a consequence of our nature, states will always exist. And so the question is not, you know, can we disarm everybody and then everyone can be freed? Like, okay, we killed the bad guy and now we're good. The question is, who is going to have the power? Who's going to have the authority? Is it going to be centralized? Is it going to be decentralized? Is there going to be a monopoly on force, or will force be, you know, everyone can use force? And, you know, I think just through history, we've seen that states, organized violence, legitimate authority is the way to go. And then the question is who wields it? And the answer to that question is us, rather than, you know, this sort of like get in power, set everybody free, and then we're going to reenact thousands of years of history and create, you know, we're going to wind up with another consolidated central, you know, technological state when all is said and done.
All right, let me try to respond to some of this stuff and get to a couple of the other things that I wanted to mention. So I think that, listen, I understand why you would hear the idea of anarcho-capitalism and just dismiss this as pie in the sky. I think that the vast majority of ANCAPs that I know had that reaction the first time that they heard it. I wish you had kept reading a little bit more about it to kind of figure out what we're talking about, because the idea of abolishing hierarchy or abolishing power or abolishing force has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about. And in fact, what we're talking about is making all of those things legitimate. They are inevitable, but what you want are hierarchies that actually produce some value for the society around people. And natural hierarchies tend to form, to at least to some degree to be competence hierarchies. Whereas when you have these state hierarchies or crony hierarchies that are basically, people colluding with the state, you get Maxine Waters as a very important person. Now, can you tell me honestly, in any free society, that you think someone like that would be in a position of respected authority? Do you think someone like Nancy Pelosi or even Joe Biden would be someone who we look to as a wise man? I mean,
Absolutely
anyway,
not.
just the argument that this is, you got into the territory of straw manning a bit. We're not arguing against hierarchies or power or force. We're trying to make them as legitimate and as useful and as moral as possible. Now, look, the idea that Donald Trump was so much so self-evidently better than when Barack Obama was in there because he was in charge, and you can try to dismiss this as Donald Trump made a few bad calls when he put John Bolton in there, just a teeny tiny mistake, making John Bolton the national security advisor. Just think this through. And as a thinking person who I know has read a lot of shit, Nick, the reason why Donald Trump would do that is because
Nick's
it's there is this left-wing projection
really
of what
bad.
Donald Trump was, literally Hitler insanity. Then there is this right-wing projection of what Donald Trump is, the savior, my king, champion of the working class, but they are equally stupid. Donald Trump was what you see. What you see is what you get. He was an unbelievably talented, self-promoting narcissist, ignoramus buffoon. And he did not know enough to know not to go into peace talks with North Korea with John Bolton at his right flank. He didn't realize that guy would probably sabotage peace talks. He was just admitting the other day that he got completely rolled by Israel. He was like, I was out there bragging about how I was the greatest, most pro-Israel president, and it turns out they didn't really have my back. Because he couldn't be bothered to read one book about one subject and learn one thing about anything. And he didn't even run the government. He was completely boxed in by his own deep state from day one. He ran nothing. And objectively, everything got worse under Donald Trump. There was absolutely none of the things. Yeah, he inflated the bubble a little bit more and basically continued the economic growth of the Obama years, which was a disaster, all fueled by artificially low interest rates and crazy high government spending. There was no true recovery for average blue collar workers in America. And then 2020 happened on his watch. So if this is your big pitch that this guy has to run the government, he completely caved when the time mattered. He declared the state of emergency, gave all of the cover needed for all of the governors.
Yeah, I'm getting
to go
lost in
insane,
the debate,
except
guys.
the three good ones. I guess there's only one good one the whole way through. Then real quickly, one other good one, and eventually Abbott came around. But he was bragging about how he was sending all the ventilators to New York and building all these makeshift hospitals. Like Trump does, he's on both sides of every single issue. So at some point you can say, oh yeah, he kind of started talking a little bit better about it. But if this guy is supposed to be your king, Nick, in his greatest moment, the greatest challenge of his life,
he got his head
failed.
chopped off.
He got an F-, just did a terrible job and put the country that he was supposed to make great again in a position where we are now legitimately at real risk of this whole thing being lost. And that is not entirely on him, but he has to take a large part of the blame for that. And then I was at some point, if we get back to it, the thing I forgot was about how you said they need to go after white identitarians. We can talk about that later. But I don't want to talk about it long.
Trump,
yeah, so
you want to follow up on that? Or anything you want out of that, but Trump too. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that debating about Trump's flaws is a little bit outside.
It is a little bit, yeah.
Well, no, I think it's legitimate.
You brought it up, bro.
Well, let's talk about it.
There's some relevance there, but here's what I'll say about that. I agree with you on a lot of that. I disagree on the John Bolton thing because, if you look at the actions building up to the North Korea summit in June 2018, Bolton was brought on, I believe, in April or May 18, and that was when the North Koreans were sort of vacillating about, if you remember, the way that we got the peace summit with North Korea was because of this sort of bellicose rhetoric. We were sending carrier strike groups to the Pacific. Trump said, my button's bigger than yours. I'll wipe you off the map, which was awesome. And that is what brought, then in January 18, They stood beside South Korea in the Olympics, and then they talked about they wanted to do the meeting, and it was sort of a tenuous thing that spring where the North Koreans were saying, I don't know if we want to do this meeting, whatever, and then Trump bombed Syria again in April 18, and he brought Bolton on. I interpreted that to mean, we're not fucking around. We could either, I brought in the architect of the Iraq war, so we could go that way, or we could do this peace summit that you agreed to. That's how I interpreted that. People can disagree. Anyway, I just had to say
I've heard that
one a lot. And I'm like,
perspective.
I know I hear you bring that up on your show a lot. That's sort of my perspective on that. But I'll grant you, let's say that
John Bolton
was a mistake, and they said
he was cool.
Korea détente, which isn't true because there was a détente with North Korea. We didn't have a war. We didn't have a war with Iran, although they did conduct this sort of shadow regime change thing.
Sounds stupid.
Difference without a distinction. So I'll grant
trust
you
the
that,
plan, Josh.
Trump. Yeah, it's more than just to say he made some mistakes. You're right. Trump, 3 out of the 4 years was an abject failure. I would argue that in the fourth year, things began to turn around because they changed the personnel office. But I'll grant.
Is your year that you're using as the example of a good year?
Well, hear me out. Because immigration was reduced by 92%. We
I
built
agree
500
with
miles of
Tim.
border wall. We passed an executive order on tax censorship. These were conservative priorities. These were priorities for the right wing.
Half the country was locked in their homes. Their children's lives were irreversibly ruined. People were destroyed. 2020 was the worst year in modern American history. But just because less, listen, man, I'm not even I'm not an open borders libertarian. But just because less immigrants,
you don't believe in government borders, do you?
Huh?
You don't believe in government-imposed borders,
there we
right?
go.
I mean, you're an ANCAP, so who would?
Well, listen, we could get into the libertarian position on borders, which basically, I'll say it real quick, right? So, but I do want to get back to this because I find this real fascinating, and I actually do think this relates a lot to what we're debating here. But the pure ANCAP libertarian position on borders, if you will, would be that there's basically two types of people who come onto a piece of property. There are invited guests and trespassers. And to me, I look at it as okay, if somebody is an invited guest into a nation, then I think that is legitimate, and we could discuss how that would happen. But when you have huge caravans of people just coming to the country, I look at that as trespassers. So under current situations with the government, I do think there's a strong libertarian case that you can't just have open borders and let anybody in. But just the fact that immigration was down is enough to consider 2020 a victory.
No, I listed a few things. Well, in here, I said reduce immigration by 92%, which is huge because the immigration is driving what I view as the problems. You viewed Social Security and inflation as the problem. I view the sort of demographic destruction. I agree with you, but if you don't, Poland recovered from communism. America could recover from inflation. We cannot recover from being displaced in our own country. So my priorities are just different. I agree with you. The COVID thing is, especially with the vaccine, the character of it has changed.
In our own country. What the fuck does that even mean?
This is just hearing him. It's just priorities, but also he's just his arguments are falling apart.
Yeah, obviously, his whole I said it in the chat, he's talking nonsense right now. What is he even really discussing with Dave? He's talking about we need to prevent immigrants from coming to the country, the whole backbone of what this country was built off of. Immigrants, really? That's your fucking argument, dude? That's a piss poor argument where I'm sitting, buddy.
Yeah.
That's a really piss poor argument. And yeah, and he's talking, it's the same thing too. It's that same weak ass though Bishop argument. We're not gonna abolish the state. We're just gonna take the state for our own means and increase its power in a way that we find appeasing, which just means that, when you eventually lose power, because the reality is in American politics, the pendulum's eventually going to swing back the other way, is that you're going to hand off this monster to the people you absolutely hate and you oppressed for so long because you decided they oppressed me, that now turnabout's fair play, so we're going to oppress you. And this is why we got to where we're at. This dude's a fucking retard. You're talking about, oh, we can go back. Yeah, we can keep going back as far as you want. The reality is that one side was mad that they got oppressed, quote unquote, by the other. So they decided, hey, we're going to increase the power of the same entity that they oppressed us with and oppress them. And this is where we're at now, where it's a fucking hot potato of oppression between the Republicans and the Democrats. Like, stupidest fucking argument I've heard in like a long time.
All right, let's see how this continues.
Regardless, that's, again, it's sort of getting into the weeds on this. The point I'm trying to make is this. I was in the process of conceding for the sake of argument. Okay, it's an F-. Let's just say for the sake of argument. I think that, and this goes for libertarians as well as even people on the right, it's easy to look at Trump and call him stupid and say, well, he didn't read books. Well, he just should have known better. Well, he just should have done this.
He has no choice but to.
The school of politics that I believe in is the politics of the practical. And what works is good. What is for the benefit of the society is good. And so if I look at somebody like Trump who came in and changed the conversation, changed the Republican Party, changed the paradigm. Now, the follow-through was a failure. I believe that. But politics will never be the same as a consequence.
Wow, what a fucking commie position. No, we can't just, no, pause that right there. We got to talk about that. That was the most commie fucking socialist bullshit that could have ever been spouted. This is what Michael Malice was hit the nail right on the head. Conservatism is just progressivism driving the speed limit. What the fuck did I just hear? No, Mitch, you can't just sit there and hit me with.
I don't even know what to say. Like it's I'm still digesting this because it's downright.
Don't hit me with the Kamala Harris though. Don't awkward laugh me away. I'm not the border, bro. I'm not just gonna go away after a couple of weeks.
Oh man. No, this is a interesting debate. That's for sure. If not just to see that this is how the American right.
I don't smoke enough crack to deal with this shit, bro.
I mean, I guess it makes sense because, like,
what makes sense? What makes sense of that socialist commie bullshit he just spouted off?
Nothing of it makes sense. That's what I'm saying.
My mind is so full of fuck right now. What's good for the people is what's good for society. What?
Yeah, that's basically some socialist rhetoric. It's for the greater good. The greater good. This is where we need Rob because he has that little thing, the soundboard. We'd have the soundboard of the hot fuzz, the greater good.
I can't right now. Go just play. Like I'm just gonna be upset for like an extended period of time. Like I'm sorry. Right? I'll be fine. I promise you. You won't. I'm not gonna do the Chester Bennington or anything like that. But Jesus, that threw my head like that. This threw me in. That's gonna throw me in a loop for a week. Like pro-war libertarians. Like I can't.
Oh, kind of like the last. Okay, so this is what we're seeing. Kind of like the one person like. Some libertarians support the truth and like whatever that was. Goddamn.
Yeah, that was bad. Hit play.
Figure. It is easy to sit on the sidelines and say, "Oh well, he didn't read any books. Well, he fucked up. He did this and that." And I'm not just saying this is a personal thing. I think that libertarianism, like a lot of things, exists basically as a diversion. I think that, because I was a libertarian in the 2016 election, I initially supported Rand Paul. And Rand Paul came in and said, I think if you support universal health care, you're on the wrong stage. And Trump said, I don't think you heard me. You're having a hard time tonight. I was a big supporter of Rand Paul. But at a certain point, I realized Rand Paul cannot get in politics and change anything. If Trump couldn't, Trump who destroyed precedent, didn't care about political norms. If Trump couldn't do it, Rand Paul, who's like 5'8", okay, and weak, and he couldn't even poll above 1%. If Trump couldn't do it, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, none of them could do it. What I saw in Trump was the fight. What I saw in Trump is that in real, practical terms, the people who you might call the statists or the tyrants, what I would call the globalists, anti-white, whatever, he was taking the fight to them. He was organizing us, this is the essence of politics, organizing our coalition against them. And he was seeking state power to wield it against them. And if you listen to the rhetoric, you know, the execution was poor, but he said, we're going to go after the media. We're going to sue the media. We're going to ban Muslims. We're going to build a wall. And so that is what terrified them. That's why they shut down social media. That's why they rigged the election. That's why they staged the Capitol. But wait.
Well, I was agreeing with the social media thing, by the way. Yes, you're all right about that. Yeah, I'm sorry, keep going.
And so they did that because it was effective. They did that because it was an effective challenge to their power. That terrified them on the 6th. It terrified them on November 8th, 16. And, you know, libertarians, alike with other people, sort of sit on the sidelines and go like, Trump's dumb. Well, like, what if we took down the government? It's like, those, in my opinion, those things are just not practical. I think these are things that people are deluded into engaging in so that they are not undertaking activities that are threatening to the state. I believe that the state would much prefer, and maybe this is a segue into the other topic about anti-statists being targeted. I believe that the government would much prefer libertarians. I'm sure they would much prefer that we had 60 million libertarians in the country than they did 60 million Trump supporters that believe that he should be a vanguard to, like, in this culture war and deliver, you know, a new American nation. I believe they would take sort of a neutral force over an adversary, a true adversary, any day of the week. And that's why I was getting into, you know, I don't think that Trumpism is so important. It's more about, yeah, go ahead though.
Okay, sorry, let me just respond to some of that. So, because I think there's really interesting stuff there. So, okay, so obviously you are correct in the fact that Donald Trump was better at politics in 2016 than Rand Paul or Ted Cruz was, obviously, and that's evident in the empirical evidence, right? And yes, I agree with you. Rand Paul did not run a very good campaign. But I just want to make it clear that I'm not just, look, you could say, okay, it doesn't take that much effort to sit on the sidelines and criticize the guy, but it's equal effort to sit on the sidelines and cheerlead the guy.
Not wrong, though.
I'm not talking some pie in the sky. Oh my God, why didn't Trump usher in anarchy? I'm saying Donald Trump appointed as the highest advisor in the Defense Department the guy, and that is Colonel Douglas McGregor. He is the guy. He was McMaster's boss, and he is the America First foreign policy expert. This is the guy who drew up the battle plans for war with Russia if we ever break out into war with Russia, or I guess there were two competing ones, but he was like high up in the military, real deal guy. He goes on Tucker Carlson all the time. You might have seen him always just arguing that we should not be in any of these wars, that this is nothing to help the country, that we're, you know, just the perfect non-interventionist argument. And he appointed him to the highest level of, you know, the advisor in the Defense Department after the election to Joe Biden. Now, I'm not some pie in the sky like, oh my God, this, you know, like we need, you know, only anarchy or nothing. If he had just done that when he first came in, if he had just had the wherewithal to, I mean, look, it's like the idea that the funny thing about the left's critique of Donald Trump is like this, he was a dictator or he was an authoritarian. I mean, the man was framed for treason by his own deep state and couldn't even get one of them to pay for it. You know what I mean? Like this is how clueless he was with wielding power. So, okay, you can say I'm just sitting on the sidelines and criticizing him, but like, I don't know. I think this is a legitimate criticism of Donald Trump. And I think that it's pretty dangerous to just brush all of this aside. And the reason why I think this is relative to the conversation that we're having, right, is that, and this was initially why you brought it up, is that your point was like, well, look, we can practically, you know, we can get the right people in there and then we can be running the government and have it, you know, impose our will on others. But the example of Donald Trump proves the opposite. It proves the opposite, that actually once Donald Trump got in there, you realized that, yeah, you know, if an enemy did get in there, an enemy of the state, then they just have 1,000,001 ways to box him in. And that there's actually no way he can really assert his agenda. And why is that? Well, it's because we have the whole national security apparatus. We have all of these progressive institutions, and you're never going to be able to take over these progressive institutions and turn them into anything other than what they are. The only answer, this is what Paul Godfrey understood, and who I think is one of the most interesting thinkers of the 20th and early 21st century. What he understood is that even though he's not a libertarian, he's not an ANCAP, he realized that the only course of action here is to smash all of this. Now, how we do that, what the strategy is to get that done, that I'm open to conversations about that and what you think it is. But the only answer here is to try our best to reduce all of this, because it cannot be taken over. It was created by progressives for progressive means or for progressive ends, I should say. And that is what it's always going to deliver you. And Donald Trump did not, it's not simply that the John Bolton thing I just used as an example of how could you be this clueless. But Donald Trump, by any reasonable metric, continued all of the policies that are destroying the country. And I would also say to you that you can downplay this as some like libertarian thing that, well, you care more about inflation or something like that. But yeah, destruction of currency is a very serious thing. And we're living through that, buddy. And it's going to get way worse over the next few years. Watch out. All that money printing from 2020, which happened under Donald Trump's watch, he was bragging about it. And of course, it's continuing and just getting worse under Biden. That's a problem. Now, the other quick thing that I just wanted to mention, because I've been trying to get back to this, but the idea that January 6th really scared the establishment, I think, is a misunderstanding of what happened. I do not believe that there was true fear in the federal government's mind that those guys on January 6th who were farting on Nancy Pelosi's desk were actually a threat to their power. If they were, you would see a response more similar to, say, Waco than what the response was to January 6th. Now, it's not that they don't want to punish all of those people, and they certainly do. And you yourself probably know that if you didn't happen to have that picture of you snapped proving that you were outside, you might be sitting in, solitary confinement somewhere. And this is, I'm not downplaying what they will do to people who flex on the state. This is the United States of America's federal government is the most powerful institution in the history of mankind. And they are not shy about exerting their power. But I don't think they saw January 6th as some threat to their order. I think they saw it as a perfect opportunity. I think that's what the people of January 6th who stormed the Capitol, that's what they handed them. They went, perfect. Now we can just ride this, pump this 24/7 in the corporate press. Look at what and all this nonsense about insurrection and attempted coup and all of this. And now, and by the way, I think Charlottesville was essentially the same thing. There's a reason why Joe Biden was using the Charlottesville footage in his first presidential campaign in 2020. While the country is falling apart and there's riots and people's faces are covered and they're scared of this virus and all of this, he's talking about Charlottesville. The corporate press was thrilled to elevate so many of those figures because, again, they play right into their hands. And while I understand while it is fun to trigger, like all of these maniacs, and I do enjoy when you do it and some of your fans do it, it's entertaining as shit. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm a comedian. I like funny first, but you guys should recognize that it also does play right into their hands. And it's also a way that they can go, okay, look, see, this is the option. You're either a woke progressive or a Nazi. And look, they're proving it by being Nazis, even though half the time those kids are not exactly Nazis. They're just like waving the middle finger at the establishment that calls them Nazis for not being woke progressives. So anyway.
Yeah, so I think, you're missing the point a little bit on Donald Trump. The point is to say, you said that, well, disabling the government is not pie in the sky. If that's pie in the sky, then, you taking over the government is pie in the sky. And so it's not to say that Donald Trump is my ideal or necessarily the example. It's just to say that, disabling government or dismantling, not having a government is something that's unprecedented in human history. Regime change is not. And without getting too much into the weeds on Donald Trump, that was the point. He was one example of something that in the American context plausibly could have happened 5 years ago. But I mean, if that's not the example, then it could be anything else. It could be Vladimir Putin rising to power. It could be,
No, I get that. I'm just to be clear here. It's not that I'm not missing that point.
But do you understand though that
I understand the point.
Power is more feasible than getting rid of all government?
I agree with you. It is more feasible that you could get a president in there who you like than some type of like.
Well, that's not what we said though. I just said, having a government that reflects our values. I mean, that's plausible. But I think that whether or not dismantling the government, that remains to be seen. That's it's a question mark.
But forget whether, just for the moment, I understand I'm not going to convince you to be an anarchist on in this conversation, or probably too many of your fans. I would like to encourage you to go read more Rothbard and Hans Hermann Hoppe and Mises and all that stuff. But I'm not saying that Mises wasn't an anarchist, but I'm not saying I'm going to convince you to be an anarchist. My point is that I do not agree with you that it is feasible to elect a guy that you like as president, who is then going to start actually representing the values of the American people.
That's not
That's what you just
necessarily.
said.
That's not necessarily. I said that through what I'm talking about broadly is regime change. That doesn't mean necessarily doing it in a certain kind of way. The point is, as opposed to whatever you're saying, which is read more Rothbard and eventually the government will, I don't know.
No, that's not, that's a straw man, dude. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay, that's a rhetorical device. The point is, what I'm saying is that,
Josh, did you catch that there? He just completely strawmanned him. Josh, you there?
I mean, he's been doing that the entire debate.
Well, it's not even been strawmanning. It's been him dancing around Dave's points, basically. Dave will make a point, and then he'll just dance around it. And the best I could describe it is basically the Floyd Mayweather of debates.
Yeah, it's the typical conservative, liberty conservative strategy when you're debating a libertarian is don't actually answer the question, dance around a lot of the policy, hit them with a lot of yeah buts, and well, I'm going to concede the point for the sake of argument, but let's go on, and hits them with a bunch of just argumental fallacies. That's what I've been saying. The whole time, it's just Nick started out great, and just the more he opens his mouth, the more I'm just I'm losing interest in hearing anything more this man has to say. He's not saying anything. Yeah, he's not saying anything novel. He's not saying anything that's relevant. He's not speaking from any libertarian speaking points. Like I said, he's coming from a more radical Bishop.
I wouldn't even say it was Bishop. I would just say this is more in line with just your typical Trump kind of perspective.
Not even. No, it's the whole we need to wield power against we need to control the power so that it's not wielded against us. It's the same mentality Though has. That's always his argument is you should join the Republican Party because we have the best chance to wield the power that the liberals are using against you right now. You don't like CRT being taught in schools? Do you not like all the woke shit going on in society? Well, if you had Republicans in office, this wouldn't be happening. But the reality is we had 4 years of a Republican, and that shit just kept getting worse. When George Bush was in office for 8 years, that shit just kept getting worse. It has nothing to do with who's in office. It's nothing to do with Republicans. It just has to do with your fucking ideas. Point blank, end of story. You're fucking garbage. They're absolute dog shit. And he sits there in front of his green screen and he tries to make sense of something in a cheap suit and a fucking 1992 set of headphones. I'm not buying this shit. Nothing he said has moved me. Nothing he said has influenced me to change my mind. If anything, I've just doubled down on everything that Dave Smith said. Shit, the first hour of me shitting on Dave Smith for having a shit take just got washed away. And this is why I'm saying I'm going to support him for president. Because if this is the guy we're going to run for president, goddamn, we got a good candidate.
Yeah, and real quickly before I hit play here, I just want to say too, I was wrong when I said before in our pre-show that I thought that Dave would come more as your traditional ANCAP. He's definitely approaching this from a different, more broad perspective.
I want to engage practically in politics. And when I said you're on the sidelines, I didn't mean to say you specifically. I mean to say it's easy to talk on the sidelines for anybody, for that matter, about anything and say any number of things.
You're shouting
but
from the
politics
cheap
is hard,
sheet.
and seizing power and wielding power is hard, and it's messy, and it's very interconnected. And yeah, I mean, Trump brought in the Israel lobby because he thought that he could master them and have them work for him. It turned out the other way. And so these sort of fanciful ideas that people talk about on the sidelines sort of crash again like a wave against the rocks of reality and politics, where you find
so what you're saying is Trump
they do wield all the cards, and so
lobby,
it is a very tricky game of
that.
Pretty much.
Money and things. Are we going to do?
Nothing.
Keep going. No, keep going. Let this fucking loser keep talking.
Through state governments or
Let-
going to do it
let-
with
let's
federal
hear
government.
this. This is
What is the
only gonna get
solution? It's
worse.
a difficult question, but you know, somebody like Donald Trump is the guy that stood up and said, I'm going to take this country and I'm going to fix it. I'm going to lead these people in this conflict to victory. And to me, that was inspiring in the model and an example of something that has happened in the past, as opposed to this idea of we need to reauthor and redesign society. We have to, our North Star is something that has never happened. Like, you know, at the end of the day, the crux of it, the reason why it matters that you're an ANCAP is because, you know, your guiding principle is something that most people don't think could ever happen unless you read Rothbard, apparently. Then you know that, you know, well, we're going to have private security and police, and here's how this is all going to work. And this authority will be legitimate as opposed to the state authority, which we call legitimate. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's really the difference is this. That's why I say it's a diversion. That's why I'm sort of impugning the whole character of what you're doing. Even, for example, when you debated the Libertarian Party chair, and he said, you know, we ran Bill Weld and Gary Johnson. We raised more money and got more votes. And, you know, you said, well, it's not good to compare that to Ron Paul in the 80s because it's different. But you said, like, your model is Ron Paul. You said that Ron Paul should be the Libertarian nominee because he'll convince 1 million people to be Libertarians, and then more people be Libertarians, and more people be Libertarians. And it's sort of like this: step one, read Rothbard. Step two, run Ron Paul for office. He'll never win.
Is it freezing again?
No, you're good. Keep going. That's just my feed.
No, it's
Well, I mean, this is a good pause point. Right here while we wait for it to either reload or.
I might have to reload. I could try reloading the page, but.
I mean, this is going awfully long already. We're already an hour and a half in.
As flawed as people that are in the world, throwing themselves into the machine, doing these things, as flawed as they are and what they do is, it's working towards something practical, something plausible, something that we have seen in the past 10,000 years of human behavior, not something implausible that's never happened. We have no idea how it's going to happen, and we sort of rest our laurels on this winning hearts and minds business, or
like I said,
we'll figure it out later.
Listen, look, forget the however implausible you think anarchy is, just for the moment. And I'm not like unwilling to defend it. I'm just saying that it's like, no, I'm sorry. Oh, I thought someone.
No, go ahead. No,
something. However implausible you might feel that is, it's not just a matter of like, okay, well, I think you should read this book and then that will solve everything. The point is that you can say, look, we have to move towards something, but what's important about theory is recognizing what we need to move toward. And then the strategy comes into like, okay, what is the most practical way to move toward that? And the point I was trying to make with the Donald Trump thing is that it is impossible, given the current structure of government, for someone who opposes the regime, who truly wants to drain the swamp, to just be elected president and then actually drain the swamp. Now, then you might get into like, well, what is a practical way to do that? And the point I was making in that debate with Sarwalk is that I think, yes, for libertarians to be saying, hey, we're going to win 70 million votes and get in there as the president and then start repealing all of these things, I just don't think is practical. What I do think is much more practical is convincing a lot of people that these are the end goals and then figuring out what steps we can take. I think honestly, for right-wingers, the more practical path than trying to find the next Donald Trump who will get in there and really, I don't know. I mean, maybe this is part of what we disagree on, but all I think you have to show for it is that the country became even more left-wing culturally. He was a great fundraising tool for the Southern Poverty Law Center, and MSNBC and CNN had great ratings under Donald Trump. They're all down now. But aside from that, I don't think you got too much. But I would just say, like, yeah, focus like locally. Like I'd like to see some like public school in some real red area. Just like start teaching prayer in school again. Just start doing it. See if the feds will send in goons. And then if they do, stop. And when they leave, start doing it again. I mean, I'm just saying there's a million different ways that people can change the system. And I'm a big believer in homeschooling. crypto, buying gold, moving to freer locations. Like there's a million different ways to do it. My point is that I
Dave
do
Smith,
not
2024.
think it's like, I'm not living in pie in the sky here. I'm not saying, oh, this is how we get to anarchy tomorrow. My point is that we need to recognize what the problem is and then think about how we can get rid of the problem.
Children.
The problem in America right now is that, number one, let's say the COVID regime. We want to stop the COVID regime. Now, then you figure out what the most practical way to think that you could stop that is. The problem is that we shouldn't have started fighting the war on terrorism to begin with. The problem is that we shouldn't be destroying our currency. Like on and on and on and on again. And particularly what I would, as the point I was trying to make at the beginning, is that I do think that people who are really concerned with the deterioration of the American culture certainly have not gained anything from Donald Trump being president. And the fact is, I think that sometimes right-wingers like yourself tend to dismiss some of these more economic arguments, like kind of you did with the inflation stuff. But I'd tell you something, man. I mean, the fact that all of these government policies have made housing, college, healthcare, daycare, all of these things so out of reach of the average person, the fact that young people are saddled with debt with no prospects of like a decent, making a decent living and being able to provide for a wife and kids, is a huge part of the reason why we don't have a more family-based society. So that's all I'm saying is like, we got to like focus on what the actual problems here are. And then you can have a conversation about how to strategically, like attack those problems. So I may have, I'm sure that like whatever your final goal is, which I don't exactly know, I'm actually curious to ask you like what your final, like if I'm say I'm an anarcho-capitalist, what exactly form of government you want to see, but it's never going to be exactly perfect. You always kind of want to be working towards some end, and then you want to figure out practically how you can move in that direction.
Yeah, and I was going to ask Nick, and you can pick it up yourself, but, he talks about identifying problems. What are the problems, according to you? And then you can also pick up on what he said.
Yeah, so, when we identify the problems, a lot of them are pretty clear. I mean, and that's just sort of it. I mean, I agree with you, Dave, about inflation. And I was a libertarian, so I know libertarians hate inflation. And I get it. I know how destructive it is and the economic problems. The thing is, though, the reason why I'm not as concerned with that is because America's a rich nation. And we have a productive labor force. We have capital. In other words, the economic problems are not problems that are things we can't recover from. What I'm worried about are the things that we can't recover from. Economic problems we can, these other things we cannot. And so, you look at like the Soviet Union as an example, or the former Soviet satellite states. And I said that about Poland. Poland, Hungary were communist nations, and communism was like the worst thing. Ukraine, Ukraine's not doing so hot now, but they went through the collectivization of the farms. They went through the killing of the kulaks. They went through the political terrors of Stalin and World War II and all this. But when the Soviet Union fell, and now that they have, over the course of a difficult transition period, become independent, it's still Poland. It's still Poland. They still retain their same culture. They still retain their same language, their same religion, more so than other countries. What I'm concerned of is moreover, the destruction of American society, which is through the demographic changes going on. That's the primary one with immigration, this sort of occupation of America by this transnational elite. The problem is not that there is an elite or a government, it's that the people running it have no allegiance to America. They don't believe in America. They don't believe in countries at all. And so it is an oligarchy, and it does exist so they can extract wealth from the nation and do those kinds of things. And the problem is the way that they're doing it is destroying the basis of the wealth. They're destroying the basis of America to begin with. That's the problem. And so if we're ascertaining the problem and then figuring out, well, then the question is what is to be done. We have to look at, like you talked about with Donald Trump. They feared Donald Trump, and even to get into the January 6th thing, they did fear that, because it wasn't just that people showed up to the Capitol and they thought, oh no, they're going to take over the Capitol. It's because of everything that went on. Here's a guy, Donald Trump, who said, I don't accept the results of the election. This election was rigged, and I don't concede, and I'm calling my supporters to the Capitol to protest. Now, maybe they're not afraid of 500,000 people in the Capitol because they could always blow them up with drones or something, but they are afraid of this sort of organized opposition, organized resistance. They're not afraid of the Republican Party, who they're going to say, vote for me, and we're gonna cut your taxes. They're not afraid of the libertarians. They're not. That's why billionaires support all the think tanks. Billionaires support the think tanks that interview you, Dave. They support Reason. They support Cato. Like I said, billionaires they get their money, like you know, if they're monopolistic or through federal contracts, it's from.
Okay, we had to pause there because fuck Cato.
Wow.
Oh man, where did he even begin? I'm sorry. That was another point where these big think tanks that interview you. Not many of those think tanks are interviewing him, although he seems to be the one interviewing people from those think tanks on occasions. Maybe. I mean, Cato people. How many Cato people have gone on his show?
I mean, unless the Gas Digital Network has become like a libertarian think tank funded by millionaire libertarian donors, I highly and irregularly doubt the whole idea that Dave Smith is being interviewed by Reason or Cato on a regular basis. Considering he's a pretty stark.
And on that note, too, you want to talk about fucking culture. Dave's actually contributing to helping save the culture by being a stand-up comedian. Like, what the fuck's this? Like, what the fuck is Fuentes doing?
And see, this is what I talk about with people. They're so proud of, like, I got a 30-day, like, ban on Facebook, or I got, like, perma banned off of Twitter.
So?
Like, that's cool. Yeah, like, that's cool, bro, but you've just lost your influence on the culture. Like, it's kind of like people who post on Instagram or do it for the TikTok clout. Like, that's cool, man. You got that 15 minutes of feeling good about yourself, but what did you really gain? Nothing. You actually went backwards, if anything. Like, Donald Trump being off of Twitter, yeah, that shows that the corporate techno companies are against us, but it also shows that Donald Trump has no more sway on that social media platform. And what did we all love Donald Trump for? Mean tweets.
At least we now have Elon Musk.
Thank God Elon filled in that fucking market gap.
He filled the void.
From the government. They're in bed with the government more than anybody. Shouldn't that tell you something, that your adversary is the government, and the think tanks that are promulgating your ideology or something like your ideology are backed by the benefactors or the beneficiaries of the government? I mean,
yeah, because
hang on, I'm not done yet. You can so that's sort of curious, and that's just to say one thing, but moreover, they're not afraid of libertarians in the same way. They're not afraid because libertarians are not organized. There's no libertarian leader that is rallying a case against 60 million people.
Him and Archie are clearly
it's much more. This is just. He's
falling
back to the very thing that Dave disarmed him on right at the beginning by separating himself from the Cato libertarian types, and yet he's just going back to that.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, how long is this going to go for? Because, like, at this point,
I don't know, man, but you see where the red line is there. Like,
yeah,
Tim, this is why I didn't hit pause.
Like, I'm scared now because, like, this is going on and on. It's just a circular argument at this point. Like, they're not talking about anything. It's just basically Nick Fuentes is just going, yeah, but you don't understand. And Dave's going, no, but I do understand. And here's X, Y, and Z reasoning. I do understand. And Nick is just going, yeah, but that doesn't make any sense to me. You don't understand. So, like, we're just gonna...
the moderator isn't really doing the best of jobs here.
No, he's just like,
kind of there.
Yeah, and like, I don't know how much more longer I want to sit through this at this point. Like, basically,
certainly isn't Mark Claire. Like, man,
it's not even the moderator at this point. It's that they're not. Yeah, okay.
It's
maybe
just nothing's being gained from this.
Yeah, like, I'm not. All I'm learning is that Nick Fuentes, just doesn't. Is that pretty traditional conservative. I don't want immigrants. I don't want, any kind of alternative lifestyles around me. Like, and that's cool, bro. If we had Ancapistan the way you're saying it's impossible, you could have all that and more. Like literally, it's like a Billy May. Like, wait, there's more. Billy Mays your ass, bro. Like Nick.
No,
like,
but didn't
I
you
don't even
hear
know if I
earlier
could.
he wants to use his political force to enforce his will. He doesn't shy away from it.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, this is a like. I really don't know if I want to keep hanging around. Like, we're already past where we normally cut this off for the night. And I don't know if I want to give Nick Fuentes any more of my precious time. Like, I have other things I'd rather be doing, like with my night, that aren't listening to this bullshit. Because this is what it is at this point. Like, I don't know why Dave's wasting his time with this. Like, you're not actually debating anything. You're just defending your point from somebody who's like, but yeah, but. Like, it's no different than, but what about the roads? Like, it's a waste of time. You're arguing with somebody who just doesn't want to hear your point. And you're not convincing anybody. Everybody on Dave's side is going to be trenched in. Everybody on Fuentes' side is going to be trenched in. It's because, Dave Smith appeals to the incels that, don't want power because, that's what they've seen and they don't like. And Nick Fuentes appeals to the incels that want power because they think that that's going to get them some pussy. That's the facts of life. If we want
This
to talk
debate has
about
been interesting enough just hearing the Mystery Science Theater-esque comments coming from Josh.
Like, I don't like I'll be real, Mitch. Like, I hope Tim gets on soon or Hector can get his feed figured out, because I just realistically can't see myself sitting through much more of this, man. Like,
You really
this is
just want to tap out, I can tell.
Yeah, man. Like, this is like, I'm not gaining anything from this. This is a waste of time. Like, it was, I thought this was going to be way more of an intellectual conversation. And this is just, like, somebody needs to give fucking Nick a signed copy of Killian Holmes' bad arguments, because that's all he's doing is just bad argument after bad argument after, fallacy, straw manning him, like every fucking simple bad argument under the sun you can make, he's making. Absolutely and wholly, because he just doesn't want to lose. He doesn't want to admit that, okay, maybe I just didn't think this shit all the way through. Maybe my ideas just aren't that great, and that maybe the idea that I need to impose my will upon the majority through, like, the utilization of state force maybe means that my ideas are shit, and not just shit, fucking whale shit. Like, big, watery whale shit.
Oh, man.
It's trash, man. I don't know why, like I said, if, maybe if Tim hops on before all this, or maybe Hector gets his feed right. But the reality is Nick Fuentes isn't a libertarian. He's not speaking to any libertarian points. If you're a libertarian, I don't know how you're sold on whatever the fuck he's trying to say. It's bullshit. It's lame. I'm already halfway through my fourth drink. Like, I don't think I can get drunk enough to, like, continue to listen to this shit. I'm just gonna get more belligerent as the more I drink. Like, I know Tim's driving somewhere right now. I know he ain't drunk yet, so he's got ample stamina to continue on with this. But I don't think I can get another, like, I'd have to get 12, 16 beers deep into this shit, and I don't know if I can survive that night. I have shit to do tomorrow, Mitch. Like, how long is Nick Fuentes just gonna spew bullshit? Like, obvious and clear bullshit. Like, bullshit. It's all it's been for the last hour and a half we've listened to. It's actually a 10. Like,
oh, man.
Like, what's your opinion on this, man? Because, like, I just don't feel like we're gaining anything from this. Like, have you learned anything? Do you feel like you're enriched by this conversation? Do you just feel
I mean,
like
if anything, it's just giving me more of a perspective on an area of right-wing thought that I just don't really go much to. But
I don't want to go there. I don't want to. I'm not interested in that right wing thought. Like that's the right wing thought I don't want in my like that's the negativity I don't need nor want in my life, man. Like it's the same reason I left the Republican Party in 2012. It was because I realized it's shit like this that's not getting us anywhere.
well,
That shit like this that's not going to win us elections. Hey, what's up, Tim?
Josh, there we go.
Thank God you're here, bro. Because I can't deal with this motherfucking shit anymore.
First of all, hold on.
Fucking retarded ass.
Okay, I'm gonna continue this shit because we're losing views and.
No, it's about to get spicy as shit. Hold on. First of all,
how's this shit?
Why can't I control anything?
Did you?
No one said you can't.
I'm
That's your property. You do what you want on your property. Just don't try and control shit on my property.
Wait, hold on. I'm talking about the stream.
Yeah.
Yeah. How come I can't control shit?
I don't know. Because Mitch did something weird.
Logged
He
in
fucked
through
everything up.
What'd you do? Follow the link?
I had to because it was the only way to get in. When I go in,
Mitch probably went under his own fucking credentials and not the fucking.
What you all talking about?
He's big
I turned off the
dicking us, bro.
Maybe that's it.
He's big dicking us, bro.
No, what you did is you logged into your own Restream account and not the Swamp Creatures one.
I don't have my own one.
Then how are you doing this without letting me get in there? I'm signed in. I'm signed into it right now. What are you talking about?
I am literally using your account.
Oh wait, hang on a second. Enter studio. Let me see if this will do it.
Will it do it?
Is this a coup?
They changed all this shit. Oh,
this is a fucking coup.
There was no Tim for a minute.
No. I'm bringing the other Tim back in here.
He's here. You can't stop me.
We've entered the Matrix.
Okay.
All right.
Fuck. I keep hearing myself. There we go. I had to remove myself. I had hippity hoppity get the fuck off my property.
What am I doing? Am I hitting play? Like it looks like it ended. So either way, now we're watching on replay technically.
Okay, there were a couple things here that I wanted to bring up, but the first and most important thing I have to bring up is you motherfuckers ain't been drinking. Okay, this is a two.
I have been, you son of a bitch.
No,
what?
No,
I got three empty cans here. There's a 2-drink minimum. I beat the minimum. I beat the minimum. Fuck you and the horse you rode in on. Fuck. What are you, fucking coming from Miami with your casually laid ass? Fuck out of here.
That's right, man. I just got off work. You know, I'm chilling.
I'm on beer 4.
Weekend.
Fuck you. Get on my level.
Actually, I'm not off work. I'm still working right now. Don't tell anybody. No, hold on, because there's somebody else just walked in.
It's Hector.
Hector, did you get your feed fixed?
That would be a no.
Listen, hold on, let me
keep it rolling.
All right, go ahead. There's a couple things that were brought up earlier in the show that I wanted to bring up that I just couldn't because I wasn't here. But now that we're all here, I mean, go for it. Press play on that fucker.
And tools to have no.
Oh, what the fuck?
Guns kill people. Guns don't kill people. People kill people with guns. And the same thing's true about government. Government is not evil. Government is not bad in itself. The problem is the people that run the government that are bad. And so you acknowledge that the government is this very powerful tool.
So put better people in charge and they won't be bad.
Government to reshape our society. I mean, if we're not
because
fucking retard.
All right, because see, now this is the kind of stuff that I wanted to chime in on. Because see, when he says things like that, like guns don't kill people, people kill people, governments aren't bad, people in certain positions in government are bad. You, as an anarchist, automatically hear that and you're fucking triggered. You're like, no, the government is the problem. Government's always been the problem. Government's no, people are doing these things to you. And even in an anarchist society, and this is the argument that I have with anarchists constantly, is even in an anarchist society, there is still a form of government. You just don't call it government. You call it private, whatever, but it's still government. And it's still people. And those things can still be oppressive. So his point isn't invalidated just because you have a view of government that is different than his.
That is why I am an individualist.
But here's the thing. When I retreat back to my property and you want to continue to oppress me,
Yeah.
I can now shoot you and end the oppression because now you violated me on my own property.
I don't disagree with you. What I'm saying is that you're not invalidating his point by saying that he's a fucking idiot because he says that government isn't the problem, people are the problem. That is true.
But all his reasoning to get to that is retarded.
All right, we can talk more about that when we get to. I want the stream to end so that we can have this lively debate.
Or unlike these other tools, it's a tool that's predicated on initiating violence, and that's very different. That's like no, it can, but it doesn't necessarily. And so that's the where the analogy doesn't work, is that a gun can also be used for defensive purposes. And when you have a government, and it's funny because it's almost like this is what's kind of different, I think, about me and you having these conversations versus like most libertarians you might talk to, where the libertarian is constantly living in the abstract, the theoretical, and you're like, okay, yeah, but what about like real life that's in front of us? But I'm really just talking about real existing, like the really existing government we have, not this abstract theoretical of how it could be used for us. I do think that in any scenario, a government by its very nature is going to take from some people and give to other people. And it's going to take from the productive and give to the less productive. And that this will always have forget even it's immoral, but I don't think I'm going to persuade you with that argument. But it is it will always have a de-civilizing effect, because you're always going to be undermining people who are productive and stable and prosperous, and rewarding the people who are, let's say, not, and the people who are not doing the right thing. So it's not a matter, it is a tool, but it is not a tool like a gun that could be used for clearly like incredibly moral reasons, like saving somebody's life or defending against somebody else. It's a different type of tool.
Well, I would disagree, because I think that, to carry on with the analogy with the gun, it's hard to use a gun defensively if you get shot with one. If two people meet with guns,
the fuck?
Let's say yours is concealed, another guy comes up ready to blast you away. If you pull out your gun and blast them, I mean, certainly they presented the threat, but by pulling the trigger first, you sort of initiated the violence. You could say, well, by pointing it, therefore this and that, but it may sound silly, but the thing that I'm explaining with the government is actually quite the same. They have this power of the government, which latently they're going to use to destroy us with it if they're not already doing that. That's why we need to use government defensively to go after them and make the society the way we want to be. The point is, you can't get rid of the guns. The weapon is there. And so it's not a question of, can we destroy the weapon? No, the government will always be there. And that's why ANCAP is really the crux of it, because if you can get rid of the government, then maybe you're right. But if you can't get rid of the government, then it's just a matter of who runs it. And then
you can certainly get rid of things the government's doing, right? So okay,
but you can't get rid of the government then, right?
I don't agree with the assertion, but okay, that's your assertion.
Well, which is it then? You don't want to defend the ANCAP position because it's not persuasive, because people haven't read Rothbard, and it is pie in the sky.
No, I think it is persuasive. It's just, it takes a lot of reading and thinking about it. And if you're dealing with somebody who's just kind of asserting that it can't possibly happen, then I'm probably not going to get you all the way there today. But yes, I disagree with that assertion. I do think it's possible. But let me just say this: if you're saying,
can I just say that Mitch's hair looks way better than Dave Smith's hair?
You can certainly get rid of things.
I just want to make it a point, by the way. I don't know if Dave Smith uses pomade or gel, but people should ask him on Twitter if he uses pomade or gel. Pomade's for men, gel is for boys.
His haircut sucks, though. I'm just saying.
You should have kept the beard.
Yeah.
The government's doing. You can get rid of so many of the evil, destructive things that the government's doing. Hey, the war in Afghanistan is over. That is not happening anymore. It once was, it now isn't. Lockdowns could be stopped. That's better than lockdowns happening. There aren't, at least right now, real deal lockdowns. Okay, they've moved into other crazy things. There are at least some things that the government could stop doing that would be better than them continuing to do that. That at least is not impossible. And I do think that, you can be dismissive of the idea of saying, oh, people should read about this and be convinced by these ideas and that can mean anything. But really, honestly, Nick, I mean, that's primarily what you do. It's primarily what I do from our different angles with different beliefs. But we're really in the business of countering the propaganda. And I'll tell you that the regime sure seems to think propaganda is really important, because they go through a lot of effort to propagandize the public, and they spend a lot of money, and they really do. I mean, look, just the propaganda campaign over the last 2 years for all this COVID stuff has really been probably the largest propaganda campaign in human history. And so, yes, I do think that it is possible that the worst things the government is doing can stop, or at least some of them, and that the more people we have demanding that, the better our chances are of that happening. Now, how exactly we're going to get that done, I do think is open to discussion.
Well, yeah, I mean, so we could let Ralph jump in for a question, because I feel like this, we're kind of I want to say this. The reason why the ANCAP is the crux is because if you can't get rid of the government,
still sucking ass.
He has done like little to nothing as far as moderating goes.
He's so fucking terrible, man.
He is not who is this guy? I'm not even familiar with him.
Ethan Ralph got famous. You can see the name of his stream is the Kill Stream.
Yes.
That used to. Do you recognize the name Andy Worski at all?
No.
Okay, so back in the day, back when SJWs were first coming on the scene, there were all these reactionary people to them.
Yeah. I know
the anti-SJWs.
A Sargon of Akkad. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Okay. So Andy and Ralph were part of that whole thing. And Andy and Ralph had this show called The Kill Stream. And they called Blood Sports. Have you ever heard that? There were blood sports on the internet. And basically the idea for the show was that two people who got into Twitter spats or had some sort of interaction with each other very publicly, they could come on the Kill Stream and do blood sports, and they could just have it out with each other. There were no hold bars. This is where you had a lot of the alt-right people get their claim to fame, because they got on streams like this is the most prominent one, but there were other ones like it, and they all got really huge because they would have people on to debate ethno-nationalism and the alt-right arguments for things, and there would be all these other people come on. Worski is a grifter.
So basically what we're viewing is the
hilarious.
intellectual... Wait.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing is the intellectual version of the Colosseum.
Is it intellectual, though? Because blood sports...
I have no clue.
Blood sports? Yeah. It would be intellectual if there was any intellect. But blood sports is purely about the drama. And so it's just like no hold bars. You're a faggot. Fuck you, asshole. Go. I'll fuck your mother. Like just constant bullshit back and forth. And so that's how Ethan Ralph got popular, was with Andy Worski on something that they termed blood sports on this stream, the Kill Stream. And so it's just known for having like the most outrageous people, which is why you see Nick Fuentes on here. The debate before this, I don't know if you guys checked the stream that was going on at like 9 o'clock or so. The debate before this was some Indian girl and a guy from the Daily Stormer arguing about the role of women, white people, and how they should be the masters of everything. And it's just like, that's this show. It's just crazy.
So this has been a very peaceful one.
Compared to that one, yes, it was fucking brutal.
All right, that's good too.
Then it's a question of who
Hi,
runs
Hector.
it. And then it's the government that's not the issue, because it can be. It's always going to be there. It's us that's the issue. We got to get in there. And if we're going to make the government do certain things, then let's use a better word, sovereign. If the government is a sovereign and we're telling the government what to do, we become the sovereign. Whatever is telling the government what to do becomes a new sovereign, therefore it becomes a new government. So you're not really, if you're saying, well, the government should do less things, who's saying that? Who's making them do that? They're then sovereign, so you're not really getting rid of the sovereign. And I'll just say this about reading. The point is, I'm not trying to ridicule you, because you're right. People should read, and they should read Rothbard. I should have read Rothbard. I never got that far. I got to Hayek thesis.
Well, there you go.
You need some Hoppe
He only got as far as Hayek. Wow. Okay, let's see.
in your life.
Yes, that's the one. See, people.
Huh?
No, seriously, it's a big point to talk that we need to talk more about Hoppe. Hoppe is basically Rothbard in action, right? And with modern context. So if no one's talking about Hoppe in this almost 2 hours, I almost feel like, what's the point? Like, you're engaging.
Well, Dave just brought up Hoppe, so let's see what he says.
been telling me that for years. I never read them, but here's what I will say. And this is just more of a jokey kind of thing to kind of wrap things up. But I'll just say this, when I went to the Leadership Institute and when I went to Turning Point USA and Young Americans for Liberty, they had these like teeny bopper, like college girls reading fucking Rothbard. Okay. Like billionaires paid 501c3s and 4s to pay publishing companies for copies of Economics in One Lesson and Free to Choose and Rothbard and all that stuff. And who's the one with the, Life, Anarchy, whatever, Nozick. Billionaires are paying for those books to be printed. You know what I read to prepare for this? I read the works of Joseph de Maistre. They're not printing these books anymore. They're no 20-something college girls where billionaires are furnishing them with copies of the collected works of Joseph de Maistre and Evola and Robert Nisbet and these kinds of writers, because billionaires have no interest in those things, and billionaires have no interest in those things because they can't benefit them in the existing power structure. So,
just like women have no interest in him.
Leave it paused. Hold on.
I'm so sorry.
I think that's wrong. No, you can say these things, Hector. What is this? Yes, because it's basic, and Rothbard's paleo method was the point, but he's making the point about billionaires over and over. What are you saying right there?
So the first thing is that you're they're like the gateway organizations, right? You're not gonna, and they haven't not incorporated Hoppe. They've not incorporated later Rothbard. So the arguments that he's making actually, in a certain context, is absolutely right, but it's a deviation completely from the point of this debate. And explain Nick Fuentes, what he just said about billionaires, is that literally whole billionaires have basically crafted these whole organizations out of thin air. The whole split with and the new iteration of Cato that exists now is a result of that. Which again, he's still referencing Cato, so it's a weird contradiction because he doesn't even understand his own point clearly. But the point is that there are people who are well-meaning. Some of them are billionaires who are basically advancing a cultural movement of this paleo-conservative, basically historical model that has ultimately failed us. It's led to privatization and led to a whole host of causes they've advanced that have ultimately failed, not only to reduce liberty, but in fact to do the opposite. So what he's saying is actually happening. But
did you just say the advancement of privatization killed liberty?
It's basically outsourcing without any accountability. So you outsource public functions to private agencies, and it's basically the deep state, right? Whether you talk about once you outsource things, it's hard to keep those.
You're talking about this as if it's a problem, but isn't that the libertarian position, to privatize and take things out of the public domain and make them more?
No, we're talking about so the problem with privatization is that you are now privatizing to an unaccountable third party while they remain a monopoly. So there's no competition. It's still monopolistic. It's still coercive. So, but now you've handed all those government powers.
So you're talking about cronyism. You're not talking about privatization.
No. This is actually the privatization model that's been in place since the Cato student started moving this in the 80s and became very popular in the 90s, and we're living through it now. So when you don't have another option or another alternative to go to for services, just basic services, whether it's public, whether it's security, garbage collection, just basic stuff, then you're stuck with the kind of government we have, and it creates. Now you have to go to the black market essentially, and that's what we have in America. We have a black market for security, whether or not we have a black market for healthcare. We have a black market. You just add how many. Why are there all these black markets? Because we've outsourced to third parties that have no competition because they've been granted monopolies. Because they basically outsourced from the original monopoly, which was the government. If that's not clear, I mean, I don't know if Nick Fuentes is going in that direction, but he's simply saying a fact. Like, for example, Turning Point USA was created from an endowment from basically a guy who got a big inheritance and of $100 million. He basically endowed the whole thing, and that's how it got started. He's talking about politics being a rich man's game, and that the tools that we have is populism. That's really what his argument is going to come down to, and the argument of white nationalists generally. Well, we have to unite the right. We have to come together and band together because we don't have the resources. Because we don't want to argue. We don't want to make an argument to people with means, to people with wealth, who typically are involved in this process in the first place. And so we have to seize power the way we see it, even though we're basically using utilitarian socialist arguments. I mean, I hope that makes the point. There's a couple of different points you just mentioned, and then you asked the question about privatization, which is a whole other debate.
Yeah, I don't want to keep dragging us down the rabbit hole. Let's finish this.
But yeah, I guess that's all I have to say on that. And then you could jump in, or Ralph can jump in with questions.
I'll go ahead and ask some of these questions as well. I like to just let it go here on the Kill Stream 2 Legends like this. I don't really need to interject much.
The entire show.
You do need to interject.
Go with the conversation, but we have a lot of questions that people sent in here. K. Max McDonald says, for both guests, is the main difference that Nick is a social conservative and that Dave is not? What restricts abortion, immigration, gay marriage, the state? How else would you restrict the above things without the state? Without it, those things go unfettered. According to the comment, I'll let you lead off with that, Dave, if you want. And that's kind of a big
bullshit
too, but
it's a crap question. It's terrible.
Sure. Well, I mean, is the distinction that Nick's a social conservative and I'm not? I guess that depends on how you define a social conservative. I mean, I wouldn't describe myself that way. I'm a comedian and I've lived a fairly non-traditional life for most of my life. And
he's had sex with men.
I was raised by a single mother in Brooklyn, and I did like a whole bunch of wild shit. And but I've settled down and I've gotten married and had a couple kids now. And I certainly have recognized that. I think that traditional norms of marriage, family, raising children, community, religion, I think things like this are very important for a healthy society. And so I think that where we are as a society right now is very destructive and unsustainable. So I certainly, in that sense, so like to a leftist, they probably would consider me a social conservative. For those views, I think Nick probably wouldn't consider me a social conservative, if that kind of makes sense. To me, the question of abortion, I mean, abortion is murder, and the question could just be more broadly, asked about murder and how murder would be prevented. Again, I think that this is, as long as a government does exist, that I think the legitimate role for the government is to protect people and property. So if there is a government, then that's how it should be protected. If there's not a government and you're living in some type of anarchist society, then you need another organization that is going to do that. And again,
which is conveniently not called government, but does the same exact thing.
Anarchy. I do recommend reading Michael Malice's The Anarchist Handbook. But yeah, I mean, things can be enforced by property owners, things can be enforced by contract, things can be enforced by private, agencies. In the same sense that if somebody is trying to murder somebody at Disney World, they have private security who are there to handle it. Now, okay, they will ultimately turn them over to the cops and the courts, but there is no inherent reason why those things have to be part of a state apparatus. And then I'm sorry, what was the other question? Gay marriage?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah, how would you regulate these things, basically, I guess is what it is.
Listen, to me, the true answer, and this is where maybe we will disagree, that I am a libertarian to my core, and I think that the idea of marriage is something that should be between its religious institutions, whoever else. This is just a matter of freedom of association and freedom of speech. You can call it whatever you want to, but it would also be legitimate for some church to say, no, we don't marry gay people here and we don't consider that marriage. So that to me is always just a very silly thing. The problem with the government is that they come in and say, we have one societal standard of what we consider to be marriage. And I think that as much as that may be unsatisfactory to some of the right wingers listening to this, you'd actually be a lot better off than you are right now, with gay marriage just being the law of the land, where you could at least have all of your own, kind of churches and communities that didn't recognize it.
Now, Nick, go ahead. If you just want to follow up a little bit on that, I'm going to run through some of these questions too, but if you wanted to take a look.
Yeah. Yeah, so I am a social conservative. I'm Catholic, and that really informs my whole worldview. I don't think there's too many Catholic libertarians. I know Tom Woods, I believe, is Catholic.
Lou Rockwell, Tom Woods, Judge Napolitano. There's a lot of really big ones.
Judge Napolitano, yeah.
That's all bullshit.
What?
Okay.
What is that?
People say
Got
something
him.
so yeah, I'm in no position to slander, but yeah. So my sort of Catholic
I wish you would have said
disposition
what
is,
instead of
it's
just
really
said
what
yeah.
makes me sort of more authoritarian because Thomas Sowell, who he's actually very intelligent. I don't really agree with him on some things, but
Like
when
what?
I was
People
a
say
kid,
that.
he said this,
What?
and this kind of spoke to me. I remember it was in middle school, and he was on Fox News, I believe, and he was asked, what is a conservative? And he said, well, a conservative is someone who doesn't believe in solutions, only compromises. That, the essence really of liberalism is that people think if only we get the institutions right, if only we get sort of the structure right, then everything will be okay. I don't think that's Dave per se, but a lot of people are like that. And the essence of a conservative is to say,
I'll address that comment after the show.
I think it's Catholicism. I believe that Catholicism is really
It'll be
the
live,
essence
but
of,
after this stream.
sort of right-wing conservative politics, really, because we say that man is fallen, man is flawed. There is this problem of evil. There is a spiritual dimension to all of this. There are angels and demons. God and the devil are working on us at all times. There is a moral code written on the soul of man, which we know, and these spiritual battles are playing out in the so-called real world, in our world, and that's what leads me to believe that that basically people are not capable of this sort of self-governing, just sort of do what you want, live and let live. We don't know what's best for people. I think we do know what's best for people. I think that people have to be governed, and they have to be governed by an authority, which is basically
Let him get it out. Pause it.
So that's why I'm influenced by a lot of these Catholics.
All right, come on. What is it? Josh?
Spit it out, Josh. What?
What the fuck was that?
All right, what did you say that triggered you? I'm doing work right now at the same time, so tell me what it was that triggered you, and we'll discuss. I feel like I'm in a unique position here, and it sounds a lot like I'm defending Nick Fuentes. I've just listened to a lot of him, so I know what he's saying. So tell me what your thing is, and we'll go.
We need to authoritate over people.
We need to
What
tell
the
people
fuck
what to
is
do.
that?
Yeah. No, this comes from, like, I had a discussion about this actually with somebody earlier today that the guy I was talking to, we were talking about a coworker, and he was saying that, like, this guy's problem is he's like super religious. And the problem with super religious people is that they try to enforce their beliefs on everybody. It's not enough that they have their own beliefs. They have to change everybody else because they're trying to save them, or they're trying to do, this, that, or the other. And it's the same thing with Nick Fuentes. He views the role of if the state is inevitable, then the state should do good. And in his eyes, to do good is to control people, because, as he said earlier in the debate, people are inherently evil, and or at least some people are, enough people are to cause a problem, and that we need to do something about that. So I think that's where that comment comes from. You don't believe that?
That's some Hobbesian bullshit.
You don't believe that? You don't believe that there's enough bad people in the world that are going to cause enough problems that we have to do something about them?
Yeah, but it's Hobbesian. He's coming from a Hobbesian
You keep saying that, but that doesn't mean anything to me. So explain.
No, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, I don't even. No, I
No.
don't. You need to explain
So
that.
you had Hobbes and Locke, but they were both two different philosophers. John Locke is the one
Locke
who
won.
had the ideas of
Locke
is the one who I like. I like Locke.
Yeah. Okay,
Locke's
so
my
what did
homeboy.
Hobbes say?
Hobbes was more of
explain the difference between the two then.
Okay, so Locke was the one who gave us the ideas of life, liberty, and the pursuit of property. While Hobbes was the one that man is a savage beast that must be tamed through autocratic rule.
I remember that. Yeah. Okay.
That's basically the two of them, and I'm fully on the Locke side of things.
Those two things don't seem to be in disagreement to me. Why do you oppose them against each
You're
other?
kind of in the middle ground. I forget what that school's called.
But
there's always a middle ground school, bro.
I understand
there's
that.
Always a middle ground school.
No, there's not a middle school ground here, because I like, okay, Locke, the purpose of government is to preserve life, liberty, and property. That's what he said, right? That has nothing to do with the inherent nature of man.
That was just the thing that immediately pops into my head. Locke had many other views in regards to empiricism.
I asked what the difference was between the two. Those are like, you're like saying like the difference is that I like chocolate ice cream and you like
I'm just
strawberry
giving you
cake.
the basic fucking
They're
overview.
different.
Tim, let me speak. Let me speak.
Go
I'm
ahead,
just
dude.
giving you the basic overview that you would get in any fucking philosophy class taught at any community college. Because
And this is why public schools suck ass.
Let me finish, bro. Let me finish. Will you let me finish?
I told you it was gonna get way better when I got home.
Because I'm shit faced, bro. God damn.
I gotcha. Let's go.
Ugh, bastard. No, you didn't get me.
I still don't know what
So basically,
what the argument between the two is.
Locke also had ideas of things like empiricism and God damn, it's like you're really gonna make me go.
I'm not gonna
against philosophy right now, bro.
study because the next time you come on the show, I'm gonna ask you what the difference between Locke and Hobbes is.
Get me at the beginning of an episode so that I am not so deep, because philosophy is like my specialty, bro. This just is not a good time.
All right, it's cool. Keep going.
That's fine.
Counter Enlightenment philosophers, because they saw, the French Revolution as this great catastrophe, the destruction of the church and the monarchies that were installed by the church. Or, so that's really where I come from on all this. And obviously against abortion, against gay marriage, against drug legalization, all that stuff.
Tom Woods, by the way, wrote a great book on how the Catholic Church built Western civilization. I bet you'd dig that.
Yes, I have that.
Very good.
Yeah. No, he's excellent. I like him a lot.
Okay, K-Max again. Views on police. I'll start with you, Fuentes, since you were still going there, sir. What do you think about the police?
I hate the police, basically. I hate them. And I hate them for, actually, libertarians and I agree on this. Like, I saw Michael Malice, and he was like, he was fighting with Alex Jones on this. He's like, every cop is a criminal. And, and I don't know if I would go that far necessarily, but yeah, conservatives, me and Dave probably agree on this. Conservatives' worship of the police and the troops is just like disgusting. Like, no, cops are not our friends. Cops are not, awesome or anything. They may be nice. They may agree with us, but they're the enforcement arm of the state. Now, maybe Dave, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but maybe Dave doesn't like that because it's a state. I don't like it because it's the enforcement arm of the state controlled by our enemies that are trying to kill us. So it's going to be the police that are enforcing the vax mandates and the mask mandates. And, I hope that's a shock to conservatives that are like, what the? We supported you for years. Now you're kicking me out of the school board meeting because the Department of Homeland Security called me a terrorist. You can't do this. It's like, yeah, they can and they will. And and they always pull me over for speeding. It's like, really? Chicago is like total anarchy and I get pulled over for going 15 over. And it's like, I'm the problem.
No, that's some anarcho-tyranny right there.
That's right. Free the people. Don't take my stuff. Don't kill me.
No, but it's well, listen, I really appreciate that, and I think that one of the more positive trends over the last 2 years has been a large kind of red pilling amongst conservatives about the police and the nature of the police. And I really agree with Nick that it is just like, it's the cringiest damn thing that right wingers do, and it's more like a boomer con thing, I think, than the younger generation. Like the new right types, I think, are a little bit more open minded about this. Maybe not quite where I'd want them to be, but better. That, look, if you live through the year 2020 and you see that cops are like arresting dads for having a catch with their kid at a park, and not being socially distanced, and then stepping back while riots engulf entire cities. And that, it's like it really is like the perfect example of anarcho-tyranny. Like, you have this incredible like militarization of the police, like unlike any country ever. I mean, like our Department of Education has a SWAT team, and the EPA has a SWAT team. Every local police department has a SWAT team. Like, it's insane. And then you're like, there are these huge riots, and you're like, well, man, I guess this is the one time ever that this would be necessary. And they're like, no, we're just gonna sit back and watch that. But if like some gamer swats his buddy or something like that, then we'll be right on top of it. It's like, it's
I think you're right,
it's sickening to think that they would defend them. And then I guess just to add my libertarian, like bent onto this, it's, for right wingers who would, I think, mock the idea, I think probably even Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, would mock the idea of like, like say something like the teachers union, that they should have some type of, say in how our kids are educated. Like, why the hell do you get a say? If anything, like, you're supposed to work for the taxpayer. Where the fuck are you even, like, in this conversation? Like, servant or whatever it's supposed to be, which of course it isn't. We both know is not how it works. But if I were to say, like, abolish all public schools and destroy the teachers union, I don't think any right winger wouldn't, laugh if some left winger was like, but then there'll be no such thing as education and no one will know how to read a book. And like, this won't happen in any other way, because there's no way that private people or families or churches or communities would step up and teach kids how to read. Like, that's ridiculous. And I think the same thing is true of the government having a monopoly on police. That it's the fact is that the thing that the police are an absolute net negative in terms of security. When it comes to real crime that's committed, they do more to punish legal gun owners in these high crime areas than they do to actually stop any of the violent crime. And of course, they punish a whole bunch of non-violent crime that is just ridiculous and awful. And the fact that, I'm sure me and Nick disagree on this part, but the fact that anybody is sitting in a multiple decade sentence over some drug charge or some gun possession charge or any of this shit, this is all just like stupid and evil and counterproductive. And I am not a fan of the police.
All right, let's run through Saxon status. Says, Dave, if there's a 0 chance for a Trumpian figure to get in and change a few parts of the government in our favor, how do you expect to cause the entire government to dissolve? Dissolving is much more difficult than altering an existing structure.
Well, perhaps, okay, maybe I shouldn't say a 0%, like nothing should really ever be assigned a 0% chance, I suppose. But I'm just saying the idea of somebody like Donald Trump getting in there and actually being able to drain the swamp as he promised is incredibly unlikely, like, basically close to a 0% chance. In terms of like, how could it actually happen? Well, no, I mean, so if you look at the American Revolution or something like that, however you might feel about it, I don't know if Nick has like some mold bug type of loyalist feeling toward the British Empire, but however you might feel about it, it wasn't achieved by taking over the British government, becoming, king, and then, undermining all the power. It was like a group of people who were ready, who were serious and ready to defend themselves, declared that they are free men and just said, it's self-evident, bitch. So what are you going to do about it? And then they were willing to actually fight for it. Now, again, that also is not something that I see in the immediate future. I do think that the United States federal government is on an unsustainable path. I think there is going to be a major correction. I don't know that that's going to happen tomorrow, but it's not going to last forever. I think between the debt and the expansion of the military and pissing off basically every other powerful country in the world, and did I mention the currency destruction and the cultural decay and all of this, I think we're in the end of an empire. And as things start to crumble, I think it is very possible that for massive decentralization or secession, but that's going to come from the bottom up, I believe, whether it's nullification
I just want this shit to
from
end so we
local
can talk shit to each other.
or secession from local governments,
Yeah,
or
right?
like just communities of
Guys, we
like-minded
have a
people getting
long way to
together
go. I
and
just
kind
want
of
to point that out.
disobeying.
No, you're looking at
One debater has
you're
a
looking
Twitter
at the
account,
bottom,
the
but
other
that doesn't.
doesn't. Nick is the
They're
bigger
going
threat
through
to the
questions,
system,
so I don't think it's
therefore
that
the
long.
most
Actually,
effective. What
I'm
do you
trying to
say
look
that,
right
Nick?
now.
I know you talked about that a little bit earlier. Maybe flesh that out a little bit.
Yeah, so
Also,
I
there's
mean,
no
I agree
reason
with
that we
Dave
have to
that
sit through the
it's
whole thing.
that in itself is not an argument as to what is the greatest threat, but it is a clue, which is to say that when social media censorship was undertaken 5 years ago, you remember after Trump got elected in
Hover over the timeline. What
November
does it say?
16, the next day at Google and Facebook headquarters,
Because they are
literally
still
got
live right
together
now.
and said,
13,
we can never
20.
let this happen again. And then what ensued
It's at
was,
least another 15 minutes because
this
they're still
series of
alive right
waves
now.
of censorship, this tightening terms of service.
Holy
I
shit.
believe this is all deliberate with the intention ultimately
we can
of
end it right
unseating
here. I
Donald
don't
Trump.
care.
And who did they ban from Twitter?
Yeah.
Well, they banned Chuck Johnson, Andrew Anglin, Milo, Pax Dickinson. They banned Ricky Vaughn. They banned Big Alaska, Jared Taylor,
what?
Faith Goldie.
This
In a
motherfucker.
word, they banned the reactionaries. They banned the biggest proponents of Trumpism, the Trump supporters, the most woke, you could say, in our terms, the most based Trump supporters they banned. You know, Ricky Vaughn was named number 60 whatever on the time most influential Twitter, and they got him.
Clearly,
To my
Fuentes
knowledge,
knows
they haven't
what
banned
about
any
the letter.
libertarians. And, you know, what does it say that these big tech companies that control the conversation and sort of, like Dave said, censorship is cooked up by government. Jen Psaki and the press secretary talk to big tech and give them lists. That's real. We know that from the administration. And the intelligence agencies are in bed with big tech, and they're in bed with the Ivy League universities. Ivy League comes up with the algorithms for big tech contracts with the government. This is all, you know, they're all in bed with each other. What does it say, though, that big tech, which is ostensibly part of this, you know, when they were tasked, you know, who identified the enemies of the American regime, identified the domestic threat, who did they take out? They took out the biggest, most based, most, you know, so-called non-aligned in the.
I'm glad he said that word. I want to have this debate with you,
as opposed to, you know, any of the libertarians, like any
Shut
of
it down.
So yeah, it does definitely say something.
Let's go. Everybody wants this shit to end. Hold on. Rip. We're all here. Okay. I want to discuss what happened in this debate because I feel like we should. What are your guys' main takeaways from the debate, and where should we end it? And then me and Mitch are going to argue about the meaning of based.
All right.
Okay, so for one, on the meaning of the word based, I just want to say.
I said after. This debate is first. Yeah, come on.
Boo, shut up, Mitch.
Boo.
You're booing yourself. Okay.
I'm booing Tim. Tim, boo.
All right, main takeaways from the debate. Go.
Nick Fuentes is a fucking potted plant.
You say that about everybody.
There was one
I
guy.
mean, if the shoe fits, wear it and wear it well.
There's nothing libertarian about Fuentes. He's
Duh.
Yeah.
Zero.
So that's just all I can say.
That's okay. What was this debate supposed to be about? Using state power?
Statism.
Yeah, it was supposed to be about that, but it kind of spiraled out of control because the one guy who was moderating really didn't do much. No other thoughts?
No. Yeah, I'm waiting for you guys to react to what did you take away from it, Hector? Did you watch the whole debate?
Unfortunately, maybe not the first 10 minutes, but I'll. You know what? I did. Now the reality is that Dave is speaking to a particular audience, but even in my wildest dreams, Dave likes to have a particular set of talking points when talking to like a right-wing audience or even a white nationalist right-wing audience, and it's not always. It's kind of cookie cutter. Like it's the same kind of approach every time. You know, if this was Ron Paul talking about it, he would have appealed to the founding fathers. You know, he would have said that how they broke away from England for a lot less than this. You know, putting things in current events into historical context. We get stuck so often in talking about Trump. Why are we still talking about him? Like, why are we still trying to redebate something that clearly failed? Right? You know, we just move on. But what is the solution? Right? We should be attacking the state, not spending more time trying to explain why state power is bad. You know, or at least we know state power is bad. So does it matter who's? I think the Fuentes arguing about, hey, the gun thing, right? You know, it's you can't ban a gun just because of who's going to use it. That's not what we're trying to get to. I mean, Dave said a little bit about it, but I think it was very infrequent. I think it needed to be brought home more. But the debate format sucked anyway. So I think he's just another example, incredibly patient, and him with that baking pen he had to run out of juice at some point. I yield my time.
I don't know. That's why the first question I asked you guys before you started is how much you miss Mark Claire because you missed a good moderator.
Yeah.
That's why I asked how much you guys knew about the people that were involved in this, because like if you haven't listened to Nick Fuentes, then you don't know what to expect, and if you've never heard of Ethan Ralph, then you don't know that he's shit.
To some degree, I think Josh was more blindsided.
Nah, I had heard him on Josh a bunch of times, but just like it wasn't really a debate. It was just more of like a discussion, like where they were agreeing on things. Hearing him debate Dave Smith was just like, wow, you're a potted plant.
What do you mean by that? Do you mean that he doesn't have any like what do you mean by he's a potted plant?
All right.
You got to explain
Potted
this. Like
plants,
I know you've been drinking, but I
not,
just don't get it.
All right. No, this is a regular insult from
I know.
potted plants. They're not useful. They take up time. They take up energy.
Okay.
They take up effort, but they don't do shit. That's him. He's a potted plant. He's just kind of fucking there.
Go ahead, Hector.
Not useful, not doing anything, just fucking there.
He just ran out of material. He like about maybe a third of the way through this, actually. It's too kind to say half. He ran out of material. He had nothing new to say. And then toward the last third, the third half, which we didn't even watch the whole thing, he basically really went back into questions where he's super comfortable. He has these talking points that are already memorized, have nothing to do with the debate. He just sat right back into it. And basically, we've seen this. He basically, what do you call it? What they do in the Senate, filibustered the rest of it. The difference, he just filibustered the whole thing.
Well, they both do. That's a common tactic for Dave Smith as well, to filibuster everything.
Well, he tried to bring up good points, but the thing is, he's trying to respond to things at the same time, because at the end of the day, Fuentes said some negative shit about Dave right then. There's his face. I'm like, how does he answer it in the nicest way possible? And what does Dave go back to? You really haven't read shit. You're quoting Thomas Sowell and you're a white nationalist. Like, you don't even know what he looks like.
Oh yeah. Okay. So when you said that earlier, I reacted because I've actually heard Nick talk about this several times. So everybody calls Nick Fuentes a white nationalist and that he's a white supremacist and all this stuff. So here is to my understanding, the best description of where Nick stands on the race issue in relation to other races. Nick believes that the white race is superior, that the white race is better than all other races based on their achievements. Also, Nick has said multiple times, people have asked him, why do you go down this identitarian pathway? Why do you try to get engaged in these sort of politics? Why don't you just direct the issues? It's not so much. Well, it may be. Okay. He may be a grifter, but what he says is, and this is, I think, is a good point, is if the woke leftists are going to racialize everything and they're going to have a black caucus for things or a Spanish caucus for things or whatever it's going to be, if they're going to have their own identitarian groups that are going to push for their own race, then why shouldn't the white race be able to do the same thing? And so that's the argument that he uses, whether or not it's for money, whether or not that's the real reason or whatever. That's what he says. And I think there's a valid point to that if you're going to racialize everything, if you're going to make it all about race and say that white people are oppressing everybody, or if you're going to say that blacks are so downtrodden and so oppressed by other groups, you can't help but expect something like a Nick Fuentes to come along. And so in that respect, it's kind of like defensive voting. Like if you're going to say that, voting, a democracy is evil, it's kind of like saying racism is evil. But if racism is going to exist, if you're going to go to prison, you're going to join a gang, and it's going to be a racial gang, because that's the only way you're going to survive. It's the same thing with voting. Democracy might be shit, but if you don't vote, you're going to get what you get.
Right. Let me just point out something. The guy for half an hour was crying about billionaires and billionaires this and billionaires that. And the reason why, either he has support of a billionaire to do this, or
I don't think so. He lives at home.
Or the only way he can get enough support to do what he's doing is to scrape the bottom of the barrel, literally, and go and just try to build up enough of a following. Because it's not about to do that kind of thing successfully. You need an audience. There's nothing to be a big audience. It has to be a loyal audience that's big enough to support him, and that's the either you do it that way or you do it or you do it the billionaire route, right? You just got to have boosters or what they call
I don't think
a patron.
I don't think it's so much for the money because he does live at home. He's not like Hassan Piker, who lives in like this multi-million-dollar home, who preaches about socialism and all this stuff, and then gets rich off Twitch. Like, it's not the same situation. He lives at home with his mom. He talks about how his mom presses his clothes for him. Like, this isn't like I don't know. Like this is the real stuff. And so you were making fun of him earlier, like women are afraid of him and all this kind of, or whatever. Like they don't fuck him or whatever whatever the joke was before. That's not untrue. Like he is I don't know if he'd call himself an incel, but he definitely is celibate. So like, I just don't see the money. I think the best thing, and I said this in the chat earlier, the best thing that Nick Fuentes has ever done has called out Conservative Inc., the Charlie Kirks, the Ben Shapiros of the world, the Bill Buckley wing, as they talked about it earlier, the Bill Buckley wing of the Conservative Party. They're not conservative. They are progressives doing the speed limit, and Nick is the opposite of that. He's the more paleo conservative. He's the more Pat Buchanan type.
If that's paleo conservative, I don't.
I think that's what it is, man.
There.
I think that's what it is.
It's let's put it this way: between on the path of way to getting to an actual libertarian approach to politics, and what you have in this traditional right wing Buckley types, right? You basically have an entire spectrum of contrarians who basically have one good point to make, and they repeat the same point over and over and over, and it's an anti-point. It's a counterpoint to something that's happening that keeps them relevant. And when it's no longer relevant, they change it, right? So that's the Nick Fuentes types are obviously appealing to one particular type of audience, one particular type of message. We see with Phil Bishop too. We see with a lot of them, and what's the main theme about them? They're against something. They have no positive policy position. They really don't. If they did, they would actually be able to show something for all their effort. But they can't produce anything. Results. They can't even produce babies. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the best arguments against the identitarians. Is if you guys are so concerned about replacement, which is what he talked about earlier. If you're so concerned about that, then have more children. It's the easiest way to fight back. Anyway, y'all want to end it? You got anything else you want to say? It says that this has been going on for 3.5 hours. That's crazy.
It has been.
It has
been. I'm running on, I don't even know what at this point.
I'm going to be awake for a while.
I'm tired.
I'm tired as well. That's why I'm saying that I don't know how I'm still running at this point. But
the fact I gave Nick Fuentes this much of my personal time is ridiculous.
One thing I was surprised about this whole thing though was
you knew what you were getting into, Halavka, when you freaking came to the swamp creatures.
What are you saying, Hector?
I was like really surprised about how much the Fuentes and really the Fuentes types again and again really support authoritarianism. They just less authoritarianism than what is happening today. So they like the idea of basically of real elites running things and
I don't think it's
better than other people. There's a better than other people. They have a right to govern. Because you're just better than the rest of us, you know?
I think Nick Fuentes demonstrates the horseshoe theory, that it's not just it. He doesn't support a lesser form of authoritarianism. It's a different type of authoritarianism. So rather than being focused on, whatever the left is focused on, he wants the same stuff in the opposite direction. He wants to ban gay marriage. He wants to restrict immigration to zero. Like, he wants to do these things that are more right leaning, but in terms of authoritarianism, it's complete opposite of the left wing.
I don't know. He says he wants to be against police abuse and really how the whole security state's set up, that all his policies require the security agencies to be bootneckers, right? They just to be involved. How else do you enforce those kind of policies?
What are you laughing about, Mitch? What is that fucking smile for?
Nothing.
That's the music. We're getting queued out. We're getting played off stage. That's what's happening right here.
Yeah.
The wrap it up box.
Yep. Exactly.
I like the wrap it up music.
Hey guys.
Oh man. I don't know how we're going on this long.
Right.
I'm still gonna be on after this. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Tim's trash talk.
Hey, we can do it. I'm doing it offline though. Apparently, me and Josh are gonna meet up at 4 p.m. tomorrow, so that's when we're doing our thing. And we'll be doing shit like this, huh? Look at that. Oh, look at that fucking fire right there. Nice.
Fancy.
Yeah. What do y'all want to say? End it. I didn't start this show. I'm not the host here.
So what? Yeah, okay. Yeah, follow me on Twitter.
He just starts plugging his shit.
No one's gonna make it to the end.
No professionalism here. All right, let me show you how it's done.
Nope.
All right, guys, thank you for joining us
I
on
respect
the
it.
watch party. Thanks for joining the watch party of the Dave Smith and Nick Fuentes debate. It's been a great show. Everybody has broken all the rules. Mitch, is there anything you would like to plug?
I just plugged my Twitter, bro.
Josh.
Fuck plugs. This has gone on too long enough.
Hector.
Just notice that Dave Smith is actually getting more sleep now, because before he basically was not and had gained like 20 pounds. So now he's back on his rhythm.
He almost
Give the
became
man a break.
Fat
He had a
Dave.
kid.
He almost became Fat Dave for real.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Check out the Swampcast Network. There's all kinds of great shows. We've got the college football extravaganza. We've got Culture in Decay. We've got Tim's show. We've got all kinds of stuff. But the Swampcast is still here, even if I'm not always here, every Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Thanks, guys.